Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome into Hoopsville, the only show dedicated to Division III basketball in the world. The nation of Division III basketball covered right here, Sundays and Thursday evenings, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and we're glad you could join us, whether it be live, whether it be on demand. We appreciate you taking the time. Got lots to cover, as believe it or not, we are 1 month away from the end of the regular season. Yeah, you heard me right. We are 1 month away from the end of the regular season. It's a little surprising in my mind, to be honest with you, when I did the math. It just feels like we're still in the middle of the grind. It also feels like January, which was a long month, has flown by. It doesn't feel like, it feels like we're still just kind of getting into it and getting to know teams. And in reality, we should know teams by now. We literally, a month from tonight, will be on air discussing who we think is in the NCAA tournament on the men's and women's side, who we know is in the tournament, who we think's going to make it, who we think's going to miss out, and who fell apart down the stretch or who came on down the stretch. It is going to be a month away. Yes, a little hard to believe, but we are a month away from the end of the regular season. A month from now, we'll know conference champions. It's not that much time. Now things, in terms of understanding the dynamics come March, accelerate. We will get regional rankings in a week and a half. We will be talking about what the ramifications of those first regional rankings are in 3 shows. That will be our 3 shows. We'll be previewing them, counting tonight, or actually in general. And then we'll be talking about the first rankings. And remember, the first rankings are more of a just a dip your toe in the water scenario. They won't be a major thing, but we'll learn more from them. That's all ahead here on Hoopsville and here in the Division III season. So now we're looking at conference tournament seasons. Everybody has gone through their first half, as it were. The UAA always being the last one. Considering they don't have a tournament, they play their final games on the final regular season weekend. So this weekend was actually the final weekend of the first round of games for the UAA. They will now turn around and play the second half starting next weekend. So now we're officially into it. For most teams, we are now into the second half of conference. And so now what we're doing is we get to see teams that maybe we're in the middle who we thought would be on the top. Are they going to rise up, or are they rising up? Teams that were at the top that maybe were a surprise. Are they coming down, or are they staying there? The true barometer has been set, and now we are looking to see where the temperature may go, where the pressure may go. Teams that had a terrific 2/3 of the season, can they continue that? Will they suffer under the spotlight, as it were? Big target on their back. Regional rankings always end up with interesting results after they come out. It's almost like a target gets put on their back, or the teams go, oh my gosh, we're regionally ranked, and seize up. It's fascinating. The other thing that's fascinating is the top 25. Things almost feel like they're settling down in some ways. Yes, we still have upsets, but not nearly as we did 2 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago, we were inundated with upsets. And while we still had a few, we don't have as many, I don't feel. And maybe when I read through these, I'll change my mind. But it just feels a little bit more stable. As a top 25 voter, couldn't be more happy. It gives me a little bit more time on Monday to dedicate ourselves to something else. If you're listening to us on the podcast, this is where your podcast began. And I have already talked about, because I hit the record button late, that we are a month away from the end of the regular season. The conference championships will be decided a month from this moment. We will be discussing who's in, who's out of the NCAA tournament, who missed out, who squeaked in, who surprised, who's burst a bubble. That's all ahead in the final 4 weeks of this season. For most conferences, there's about 3 weeks left of games before 1 week of conference tournaments. For a handful of conferences, there's really only about 2.5 to 3 weeks left of conference regular seasons before they get into their conference tournaments ahead of time. And of course, we know the one conference in the UAA who will not have a conference tournament, so they've just got regular season games the rest of the way. The whole month of February in the UAA will be the second round of the conference. Top 25, again, feels a little bit stable. Knock on wood. Yes, there were losses. On the men's side, there were 9 in the top 25. But come on, we were talking about 15 on some weeks, maybe more. That doesn't count the receiving votes category. The receiving votes category on the men's side took a beating. That might mean Division III voters will consolidate more and solidify that top 25. Remember, last week was the first top 25 we had since 2013, week 13. End of the regular season, late February 2013 was the last time we didn't have any teams drop out of the top 25. Will these results result in the same and a consolidated top 25? Or will we open it up more and we will get more votes for more teams? I don't know. I was surprised a couple weeks ago when things consolidated. I thought they'd open up with the amount of losses we had. In reality, it went the other direction. A lot of extra fat, as it were, was cut out. So we're at the exciting part now of the season. We've been going through the grind. Even I felt like we've been going through the grind. And now we're into the exciting part. Now we're into that second round of games. Can the team that won on the road hold on at home? Can the team that won at home hold on the road or get the upset on the road that they so badly need to stay ahead of conferences? Now we're starting to see the conferences start to split apart a little bit more. Surprisingly, Tufts has got a game and a half lead in the NESCAC. I didn't think the top of the NESCAC would separate itself on the men's side, but it has. Whereas there's other conferences, CCIW, for example, where it's nip and tuck. Now, the top 2 have separated themselves a little bit in the CCIW, but the rest is pretty crazy. But nobody's separated themselves in some other conferences. But this is where that starts to shift. Now we start to see teams start to pull away, or we see conferences get more complicated. And here's the trick. Those conferences that want extra bids or hope to get extra bids, or those teams who are not at the top of their conferences, who hope to get in as a at-large team to the NCAA tournament, this is now the time that is the most crucial. You've set your resume, and now you know in the last month basically what needs to happen. You will find out in 10 days where you stand in the eyes of the NCAA, and that will change the following week and it will change the following. But the first regional ranking counted as the good barometer for everybody. Where do we stand? You've set a resume to this point. You know if you can afford to take hits or you need to be solid the rest of the way. Any team looking to get in because they figure they may not win the conference tournament and need an at-large pick, this month is critical. You cannot stumble. You have to be on top of the game. It may not result in a number 1 or a number 2 seed in a conference, but you position yourself that when you hit the conference tournament, that maybe if you at least get to the semifinal or championship, you haven't done anything in the month of February to worsen your situation. If you come into February already with a couple dings and dents, you can't afford more in February. This last month is critical. If you come into this month in really good shape, you might be able to take a ding or a dent because the target's pretty big, but this is the month you cannot rest on your laurels. You've got to keep the foot down, and that's what makes the parity in Division III so fascinating, because I think it's harder and harder now to keep the foot down. I think the target is bigger. There is very few Whitmans out there right now this year. Whitman's got a very comfortable lead in the Northwest Conference in men's basketball. Doesn't mean they don't stumble, and it doesn't mean they don't come back to the pack, but they basically have some breathing room. But we'll see when it comes to SOS numbers. This is also that time of year I start really seriously looking at the SOS numbers. SOS numbers up until about a week or two ago are really hard to gauge because the second round of conference action hasn't really gotten put into play. Now we're left with anywhere from 4 to 7 more games for everybody. While the SOS will shift, we have enough data to understand if they've got a good SOS or a poor SOS. So a lot of questions we'll ask tonight to coaches are, here's what it looks like. What do you think? And some of them will duck that question. Some of them won't care. Someone will talk about the fact that they're not concentrating on the SOS, that they got to go out and win. That's fine. But for us and for many of the fans who are trying to understand the landscape of the NCAA tournament when it comes to March, now's the time we look at those SOS numbers. If you're looking for those SOS numbers on the women's site, it's an easy math. So go under our women's tab, I think, on D3 Hoops. I don't remember specifically where it is. I'm going to look at it while we're talking here. Under news, go to women's. You'll find strength of schedule. It's a very easy number to calculate on the women's side because they don't use the multiplier. On the men's side, they use the multiplier. It gets just a little bit more tricky. And thus, we go to our friend, Night Slappy, who has his numbers that he has been able to figure out based on what the NCAA does the last couple of years. And that brings me to this point. We have been waiting since November to find out. The men's committee talked to the stats group, and said, are we sure we're calculating this correctly? And without trying to go into inside politics, because this has been a long conversation on the show, back at the beginning of the multiplier, basically every single team you played had a multiplier. So if I'm at home and I play the other team on my home game, their record, not counting our game, their record, not counting the games that we played, was multiplied by 0.75. Then if I went on the road and I played somebody else, same thing happened, but now multiplied by 1.25. What changed was the stats group said, you know what, we think we have a better way of doing that. So they took every single team I played at home, took that entire win-loss percentage and multiplied by 0.75. They then took my entire away schedule and took the entire record, granted, not counting the games I played, and multiplied that by 1.25. In many ways, and this is where it gets complicated, they wiped out the multiplier. If a team plays a really balanced schedule of home and away, the multiplier is pretty much gone. It will fluctuate a little bit based on who you played on the road and who you played at home, depending on their wins and loss percentages. But it isn't a strong number anymore, according to what I've been told by Night Slappy and the rest. That's the idea behind it. So the men's committee went and said, are we sure this is right? Here's what I have found out. They have had the conversations with the committee. The stats crew has explained themselves, et cetera, et cetera. Here's what I know. There will be no changes to how the math is calculated this year. We will go with the SOS number calculated, how it's been calculated the last 2, 3, or 4 years. However, there are changes coming to next year, so buckle up. What are the changes? I really don't know. We hope, with the marathon show coming up on Thursday, our normal plan is to talk to both committee chairs. Now, this doesn't affect the women's. Hopefully, we'll be talking to Kevin Vandestreek of Calvin on the show Thursday to discuss with them, okay, what did they tell you? Again, it's a little bit inside politics, inside baseball a little bit, but it's still important because in a month's time, we're going to be looking at SOS numbers and we want to know what they actually represent. So there you go. There's also a bunch of other news and notes I want to get through quickly. We'll talk some more about them at the end of the show, and then we'll tell you our guests coming up. First off, by the way, Geneva's women's basketball coach back into coaching after a fight with cancer. Absolutely amazing story. Lori Wynn had a real-life battle with ovarian cancer, prevented her from joining the team at games so far in her 6th season. She's been working remotely from North Carolina since diagnosed 7 months ago. She now has the strength to travel, enough time between chemotherapy treatments, etc. She is back on the sideline with Geneva. And the PAC, the conference, has done an amazing job of recognizing that. And everybody is playing for Coach Wynn. So a wonderful story. We'll try and get you more on that story in future weeks. By the way, really cool note, Case Western Reserve this weekend, throwback weekend. They did a throwback weekend to Case Tech and Western Reserve, the two schools that came together to make Case Western Reserve. For example, today, where old Western Reserve uniforms, the Rough Riders look, it was awesome. And now, it didn't go their way in terms of men's basketball games, but it was a great thing to see. Hats off to the school for that. I would say do it every year, just my opinion. It was cool to see the different look uniforms. They well, actually, they had to withstand a men's rally. A rally from Chicago yesterday, and ended up losing that game 74-72 to Chicago. And Wash U, it says an 11-point game. I know that was Case Western was, I think, leading that with a couple minutes left. Wash U hit a bunch of free throws down the end to win by 11. Wash U led by 16 early in that game, and Case Western came back and lost their forward probably for the season on a freak accident. Not at liberty to say what happened. Maybe if their coach is listening, you can tell me if I can. But they've lost him, it looks like, for the season. So they're down an important player. What stinks for Case Western Reserve men is they've lost the last 7. Whereas on the women's side, they went 1 for 2 this weekend. They beat Chicago and then lost to Wash U. Wash U put up 92 points. Whoa! Some odd notes. A couple things. First and foremost, I told you there was something weird going on in New Jersey in women's basketball. Here's what I can tell you. FDU Florham's women's basketball coach, Mark Mitchell, has not been on the sideline the last 2 games, Wednesday and Saturday. From what I've been told, or what I have learned, I apologize. Let me quick. I'll get to that. Anyway, back to Mark Mitchell. From what I've been told, he's been suspended indefinitely. Believe it has something to do with some stuff that dates back to last season. I don't have definite official word on this. We're still trying to figure it out. But Mark Mitchell has not been on the sideline for FDU Florham games Wednesday or Saturday. Wednesday, they rolled over Manhattanville by 38 points, I want to say, 35, 40 points. They had 2 of their starters play 38-plus minutes. I don't know what that's all about. They had, I think, most of their starters play more than 30, and they won a game by more than 30. That game was out of hand at halftime. I don't know what happened there. Saturday, they got sent home unceremoniously by Misericordia. Again, Mark Mitchell not on the bench for either of those. We'll continue to follow that. At Adrian, Devontae Harris has been released from the team, dismissed from the team. He's the leading scorer in the MIAA. No idea what happened with Devontae Harris, but just found that out in a press release last night, basically buried in the game recap. And then Augustana, their sophomore, Warford, apparently is no longer at the school. Coach Giovanni had a statement that he had to read from the head of communications for the school. Basically said he can't comment and Warford isn't at the school anymore. Now, Warford had an incident, I think in August, where he was in an accident, I believe, and I don't think he was at fault for the accident, but I'm not positive. And it escalated at a later date, or later that day, there was an altercation. Apparently, Warford broke his jaw. Crazy things happening in division with this case at Augustana. I really don't understand. We can't figure out what's exactly going on. Again, the case back in August 31st, which protection orders were filed. Pearson Warford and Nolan Ebel, sophomores on the basketball team, filed a protection order against George Edlund, who's a junior and a former football player at the college. The order filed states that Edlund threatened them via email concerning key damage caused to Edlund's car. It also states that Edlund confronted Warford on a particular day in the lobby of the Carver Center, asked him if he was going to pay for the car, and then struck Warford in the face. Warford sustained a broken jaw and had surgery on said jaw. Now he's not at the college. I'm not saying those two go together, but it's been a rough year for Warford. So interesting situations going on throughout Division III. What happened in the top 25? God, I'd love to keep going through all this, but we got to get to our guests. But one of the things that jumps out at me is Tufts, the number 4 team in the country, lost to Bates this weekend in their only NESCAC game. They stay on top and control the NESCAC. What happened? It's called a segue. Coming up next, we will talk to their head coach. Tufts men's basketball coach Bob Sheldon will join us on the show to talk about what happened against Bates, what's going on in the NESCAC. Are they comfortable in the lead? I don't know if they are. And a lot more. That's all coming up on Hoopsville. Back to my note, by the way, about Case Western. My Apparently they do throwback weekend every year now and wear the old school unis every year. How did I miss that? I'll be honest. I've been covering Division III basketball for 20 years. I did not realize Case Western every year did throwback. I totally did not know that. And I know that may sound crazy to some of you, but I didn't know. That's fascinating stuff. That's awesome. I love it. Thank you, Dane, for filling me in on that one. Really appreciate that, to say the least. We're going to take a break. We should tell you the rest of our guests, shouldn't we? Also coming up, Coach Cillo from Elmhurst women's basketball. They're number 2 in the CCIW. Say, what? Yeah, we'll talk to them. Can they catch Wheaton? I don't know. They got a game against Wheaton coming up. Alex Richie from Oglethorpe will join us. No, not the one who joined us to talk about Stevens Point. The head coach of Oglethorpe. He'll be in the WBCA Center Court segment. Talk to him. He was one of the honorees in the inaugural WBCA 30 under 30. Under 30 years old, already having tremendous success at Oglethorpe. We'll talk to him about said success, even though they had a tough weekend. Then we'll head to LeTourneau in Texas. Dan Miller's got his Yellow Jackets humming and buzzing. They are on top of the East Division, and they are playing extremely well. Considering where this program has been, LeTourneau is scary and one to watch out for. Both Oglethorpe and LeTourneau, this is not a flash in the pan this season. And then we'll head back to New Jersey. Karen Harvey will join us from Montclair State. The Redhawks lead the NJAC, but it looks like a tenuous lead to me. The NJAC probably deeper than it's been in a long time. How have they stayed on top? Coach Harvey will join us to talk about that. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA NABC studios. Don't forget, coming up on the show, Hoopsville Mailbag, if you get us questions. We don't have any right now. Hoopsville at D3Hoops.com is your mailbag segment. Hoopsville at D3Hoops.com. And plenty more. We'll even go through the top 25. You're listening to Hoopsville. We'll be back with more, including Tufts men's basketball coach Bob Sheldon, right after this.
My name is Marcus Walker. I was All-State, won a state championship, a high school All-American, and played college and pro ball. I played because I love the game. I grind to be the best. I sweat because I put in work. I'm strong because I believe. When I want to bring it before game time, I come to the house that college basketball built, the CBE. No matter your skill, take it to another level. Elevate your game right here at the College Basketball Experience at Sprint Center.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and I know how powerful words can be. The term gay doesn't mean stupid, lame, or less than.
So I pledge to speak up if I hear the term gay used in a derogatory way or any other homophobic terms.
If you can play in Division III.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and my teammates unconditionally accepted me as part of their family. So now I pledge to do the same for others. If you can play in Division III.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.D3Hoops.com.
Great moments are born from great opportunity. That's what you have here tonight. That's what you've earned here tonight. This is your time. Now go out there and take it.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you are doing well. If you got questions for us or want to interact with us, don't forget, on Twitter, at D3Hoopsville and hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville at D3Hoops.com. Join us on Facebook at Facebook.com/Hoopsville. Of course, we're on Instagram, though mainly in a promotional reasons or promotional way. You can join us there at D3Hoopsville as well as hashtag Hoopsville. I know I just got a message regarding Mark Mitchell, and this is a different Mark I'm replying to. Mark, I am aware of some of that. I just don't know how much of that's on the record. I'd love to say 90% of what you've got on there. And by the way, Mark, I'd also argue there's a lot more than that. We'll talk more about what may have happened with Mark Mitchell at the end of the show. I'm sorry you're going to have to wait that long, But as a coach said to me earlier this weekend, came up and said thanks. And by the way, we're going to add a new anyway. Coach said to me, "Hey, listen, the show's turned into must-watch show because everybody in every segment's got something interesting." And thank you. I agree with that. I think it is a must-watch show. So hopefully you'll watch or listen to the entire show the rest of the way. By the way, I'm going to add a new segment at the end. I don't know how well this segment will work, but we're going to call it Hoopsville Shoutouts. These are not necessarily to the best player. These are more team-orientated. These are things that I saw that I think were cool. They may not be a win. It may be even a loss. It's just something I thought was neat. I had a personal moment earlier this weekend that I just want to give a shout out to a team that'll be coming up at the end of the show. We mentioned that we hadn't gotten through the top 25 due to all the things going on, and I'm a bit fired up because we got a month left in the season. There's a lot to talk about. And one of the things I mentioned was we'll cover what happened in the top 25 this weekend. The one that I did mention was that Tufts, unfortunately, took a bit of a hit this weekend. The men's basketball team, 4th ranked in the country, only had one NESCAC game. They had to play Bates, and they had to play at Bates in Maine, and they unfortunately lost that game. But what does it all mean? Well, joining us on the Hoopsville Hotline, sponsored by the City of Salem, is Bob Sheldon, head coach of the Tufts Jumbos. Coach, welcome into Hoopsville, sir.
Well, thank you, Dave, and thanks for bringing that up about Saturday. Beautiful.
You knew I had to at some point, right?
Yeah.
You can't fly that one under the radar necessarily.
Well, I thought we'd warm up a little bit first, but go ahead.
Hey, well, we can start with the warm-up. First and foremost, obviously 16-3, building off of what you guys did last year to get to the Elite Eight at home, lost to Amherst, knocking on the door of getting to Salem. Honestly, did 16-3? Was this kind of season at 16-3 what you thought you could do the next year?
Yeah, I believe it was. We had 2 great senior leaders that left us, and but we had a lot of young guys that had played. We have a couple of freshmen that have stepped in and are playing too. So I thought if we got some breaks, which we've gotten, and we've got some chemistry going, that I thought we'd be in the hunt. I really did.
Well, certainly in the hunt. You are leading the conference by a game and a half on Trinity, Middlebury, and Amherst. It is that kind of conference this year. Bates and Wesleyan are 2 games back at 4-3, and Hamilton and Williams behind them. So it is a crowded field. Dave Hickson was on the show very first week of the season, and I said to him, Dave, how deep is this conference really going to go? I expected him to say maybe 3 or 4 teams deep. He said this could be 8 teams deep. It looks like it's 8 teams deep. Is it truly that deep a conference this year?
Yeah, I think this is the deepest it's been in a long time, and I don't think there's anybody that's a clear, top of the league thing. I think with the top 25, we've had 5 people in the top 25 throughout the year as it's gone along. So it is really deep. I think in the 8, anybody can beat anybody anywhere, and it's kind of happened. I know earlier in the show you said it was surprising that Tufts was on top with a game and a half lead. Was that surprising because it was Tufts, or that it was only a game and a half, Dave? Surprising
that you're the only one up there at a game and a half. I thought this would be you and Amherst maybe tied, or Middlebury tied with you, or so. I didn't expect you guys to have a game and a half lead on the field. That's where I feel it's a little surprising. And honestly, have you won? It's a 2.5 game or 2-game lead.
Thanks for bringing that up.
I'm sorry. I know. I'm subtly getting
okay,
it in
Davey. No, I'm kidding. It was. It's a tough, but we haven't played Trinity or Amherst yet, right, and we're going down there next weekend. So, I think it's a lot closer than it looks. But it's going to be anything. I think anybody can win our league, the regular season, and then it's a big advantage if you win the league, because then you get to host kind of the Final Four if you get through the first round. So there's a lot at stake.
Yeah, I mean, let's just be real for everybody out there. Every single team is at 500 or above. Bowdoin and Colby are at the bottom of the conference, both 9-9 and 1-5 in conference. Just shows you how deep this conference is. Everybody else, the other 8, right? 8, 1, 2, 3, 4,
right,
6, 7, 8, 9 teams actually with double-digit wins or better. So this is an incredible race so far. You're right. You haven't played Trinity and Amherst. We'll get to that in the single-round games that you guys have in the NESCAC. But let's get the elephant out of the room here. You guys did go to Bates. Obviously, that's not one of the easier trips, though for you guys maybe easier than Hamilton, and lost 84-72. There's a couple things going on here. I know you're missing somebody. We'll get to that in a second. But overall for the game, was this just one of those where Bates, who's certainly much improved, just happened to have your number yesterday?
Yeah, they're a great team. John Ferbers does a great job up there. And I don't know if you've ever been to that gym.
I haven't.
Yeah, I think it was built back when Steve Brennan was in school there, and they haven't changed anything since then. So it's a tough place to play, and it was a big crowd, and we got off to a slow start and didn't shoot well, and it just kind of snowballed. And I think they were ready to play us. They did a good job, and they have two real good bigs. And you mentioned we have an injury that affected us a little bit, but they took it from us. They came at us, and they did a great job.
I think Bates's gym was built back when Joshua Chamberlain was at Bowdoin. That's how long ago that thing is. Let's talk about the injury here. Many of us know that senior center Tom Peleschi went down, the Phillips Andover grad from Haverhill, Massachusetts. However, there's it's scuttlebutt. We don't know how bad the injury is. Is this a temporary setback, or have we unfortunately lost one of the more exciting players in the conference for the season?
I'll Bill Belichick this. We're not sure right now. That's okay.
Wow. You're the polar opposite of Bill Belichick, sir.
No, we're not sure with Tom. There's some things up in the air. There's a slight chance he can make it back, but, if he does make it back, it won't be for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and after a month off, it's going to be tough. So, we're as a team, we're going on forward that he's not going to make it. If he comes back, it'll be a great thing for us, great inspirational. I don't know how good his basketball will be, but it'll be good, really good for the team. So we're hoping he makes it back, but we're not sure.
Plus, we can go through his whole story, his heart surgery and all that, and that's probably a story from another time, but. He's third on the team in scoring as a senior. You're led by junior Vincent Pace at 13 points a game, 6 rebounds a game. Tariq Smith, a senior, 13 points a game, 3.5 rebounds a game, 4 assists a game. Then Peleschi at that 10.6 we point out, and team high 6.5 rebounds. And then you got another bunch of juniors that are helping you. Ben Engvall and Averett Dayton, 9.2 and 8.7 points a game. So, you're not overly senior laden. You've got 2 keys. One is injured now, but you got a lot of underclassmen who are stepping up here.
Right. We try and get down the court a little bit and get up and down, and we play 10 or 11 guys every game, and it's good to get the young guys some experience. And I think that helped us with what you said earlier, how we kind of came into the season and didn't lose a whole lot, even though we lost those 2 great leaders. And they had some experience, and we're getting our guys in there now. Freshmen are playing. We only have one sophomore; he's playing. So everybody's getting to play, and it makes for them to get experience, and it actually makes we have tough practices every day. I mean, they go at each other. There's a little trash talking in practice, and but it's just so competitive. It's actually a great group to be around.
You have some interesting results this season. Babson tripped you guys up 91-78 right before they had a thriller against Amherst. You then lost the next game against Mass Boston, which certainly surprised quite a few people. Since then, up until the Bates game, you were undefeated. And obviously ticking along. You've got a wide selection of teams in here on your schedule, not only in the conference, but you got the likes of Babson, but you also have a team like Southern Virginia, who you played at Rutgers Newark, and I realize not much control over that one, Southern Virginia, in that tournament as well. You also have scores that are all over the place. Your lowest scoring game, I think, was in the low 70s. Your highest scoring game was 113 points against Newbury the other night. What kind of team is this that you have in terms of X's and O's?
Well, I think, we're a good offensive team. We have a lot of weapons. I think we're averaging 83 or 84, and you listed our leading scorers are at 12 and 13. So I think that speaks a little bit for itself. But we're a little bit better defense this year than we were last year. We average about the same offensively, but defense, we've started to pick it up a little bit. I think we're either 1 or 2 in our league in defensive shooting percentage. So that's a pretty good cap, because I believe last year we had a little ADD, which was attention to defense disorder. But we fixed that, and so we kind of got more of a complete game, and I think it's carried us. Like you said, sometimes we don't score as much, and we've played great defense and won. So it's we're a little bit more well-rounded as a team this year.
Attention to defense disorder. I love that. I'm going to mark that one down as a one to remember. So obviously we're near the end of this. You've got 5 games left in the regular season before you get into the conference tournament. Obviously, you would love to position yourself to make sure this comes through Cousins Gymnasium. Last year it had to go through Trinity, and it didn't work out for you guys. But you've got one of the more interesting finishes to the season, mainly because of the NESCAC schedule, but also because you decided to do this. You'll go non-conference against Mass Dartmouth on Tuesday. Then you play Trinity, Connecticut on Friday in conference play and Amherst in conference play the next night on the road. Then you're home against Pine Manor in non-conference play before finishing up against Williams in conference action. Did you purposely do that to keep the guys in rhythm, or is it circumstance? What was the mentality here to make sure you plugged in all the holes?
It was kind of circumstance in the rhythm. Like, definitely the last game, we like to play one, not go the whole week and not play before the last home game against Williams. But the other ones were, part of it is our academic calendar. And to get all of our games in, we couldn't get them in before Christmas, so we had to put some, later in the schedule, the second semester. Now I'm looking at it kind of wishing we don't have this one coming up Tuesday so we can go back to work. But, I guess we'll go down there and see what happens.
I certainly could blow the rust off, but both those two teams in non-conference aren't that bad. Mass Dartmouth's 12-7. Pine Manor is 12-6. Playing, both of them have turned some heads, especially Pine Manor this year. Is it hard to get the guys to focus on a non-conference game, or because it's just a game, it's a game and it doesn't really matter?
We kind of addressed that in the very beginning, because with our league only playing everybody once, we have 14 non-conference games. So it's a little different from a conference that'll play 14 or 16 games, and they may not mean as much. But with us, the non-conference games mean, well, not quite as much, but almost as much, because we play so many of them. So we get up for them, and we kind of beat that into them early, and it's worked out well for us. So we'll see Tuesday.
Exactly. So what's the message to the team? Obviously, we'll get regional rankings coming out here in about 10 days' time. You obviously want to make the tournament and be in as best a position as possible. You're leading the NESCAC as we speak. Is this a situation where you let the team understand the whole scenario, or is it put the blinders on and let's just focus on what the task at hand is on a game-to-game basis? And yes, I just set up you for a nice Bill Belichick moment.
No, Bill and I will be hanging out later tonight, but he's a little busy. We actually kind of put it out there for him, and we talked to him the other day, because we have less than 2 weeks left in our regular season.
Yep.
We end next Friday. We told him this is a time now to focus in and, be smart. Be smart in the classroom, be smart with your eating habits, your sleeping habits, be smart with your social life. This is a time now that, and I think you said it earlier in the show, that this is an exciting time of D3 basketball this last month, and it can make or break you February, where you want to go and where you want to be set up for the NCAA. So we put a lot of emphasis on the next 2 weeks coming up, and then what happens after that, we'll kind of start all over. But we're looking just through NESCAC right now. Let's get to the end of the season, maybe get that home, at least one home game, maybe some more, and then see what happens after that. So we kind of broke it up a little bit into a different season.
And then finally, obviously the games against Trinity, Amherst, and Williams are important. The one furthest back is Williams, but any result against them is going to affect those nipping at your heels. Is this something that you feel extra pressure about, or is it just the NESCAC and you got to go about and execute?
It's kind of NESCAC. I think, our team, it's a good league. It's, I don't want to get anybody mad on D3, but it's the best league in America. And I think, every game can count. And I think we take a little heat because we don't play home and away. But on one hand, I know that's tough to do, play a team twice. But on the other hand, we could lose the first game of the year on a half-court shot to, say, Trinity, and then we can't win the league because we never get a chance to get back. And even that, we could go 9-1, they go 10-0. So it's tough only playing them once, and it makes every game that more important. And I think our players really get up for the NESCAC games, and the crowd's there and everything. So I think it's a great league, and it's a great way to play.
Well, Coach, I'm looking forward to the finish here. Dave Hickson, admittedly, is right. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but Dave was right that this was going to be a heck of a NESCAC race this year. And so just to have you up top by yourselves right now is pretty impressive. At the same time, I'm looking forward, buckle up for the last 2 weeks of this regular season and conference tournament. I appreciate you taking the time to come on, especially after the loss to Bates. We certainly wish Tom Pelesi all the speedy recovery. We hope we can see him back on the court. If not, tip of our hat to an amazing career. In the meantime, we always give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuning in?
Well, no, I just, again, want to thank you, Dave. And like you said, this is just a great thing for D3. And, I go in there for the scores. I don't go on the boards anymore because I think my kids post stuff about us. They should be playing more. But I just think it's a great venue for D3 people. And, we tell our recruits about it, and they can look at it and see what's going on, get a feel for D3 before they actually get here. So it really has a wide-reaching audience, and I think it's a great thing, and I'd like to thank you and everybody that does that.
Well, thank you, sir. Appreciate you coming on the show and talking as well. I really enjoy our conversations. I look forward to hopefully talking to you down the road as well.
So do I, Dave.
All right, take care. Bob Sheldon, better known as Bill Belichick. Just kidding. Joining us here on the show. Appreciate him taking the time. Again, the team is having a tremendous season at 16-3, 6-1 in conference. They've got 5 games left, 3 of them in conference. Again, at Mass Dartmouth, at Trinity, Connecticut, and at Amherst all next week. Then at home against Pine Manor and Williams the following week. We'll keep an eye out to see if Pelesi comes back. Sounds like he's probably out at least until late in the conference tournament. That's what it sounds like. If he gets back, it'd be late in the conference tournament or the NCAA tournament. So our good wishes to him. We'll see how this all turns out. Going to take another break. When we come back, we'll switch into women's basketball, and we'll head out to the Chicagoland area or Illinois. Talk Elmhurst women's basketball in the CCIW. Just how good are the Blue Jays this season? And should Wheaton and the rest of the conference really be that worried? You'll listen to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA and ABC studios. More Hoopsville after this.
I used to never really talk. Ever. I was afraid if I said something wrong, everyone would laugh at me. But then I started to play golf with Special Olympics. It helped me to find my voice. And now everyone else is speechless.
This is why we love sports. It's in the way they play, free from the pressures and all the money talk. Playing for simply the love of the game, where everyone has a shot at their definition of success on and off the field. This is what we love about sports, and what we can still love about college sports.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
We are calling you, all of you. We are calling all Division III schools to join our cause.
It's on us to start the change. It's on us to be the change. It's on us. It's on Division III. It's on all of us to stop sexual assault.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. We got our next guest lined up. Trust me, Coach, I can see you. I can hear you. You're good to go. I know she can hear me. That's a little trick here. You got any questions for us? Tweet us at D3Hoops or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville at D3Hoops.com. Join us on Facebook, Facebook.com/Hoopsville. By the way, I let something go there for a minute with Coach Sheldon. He said top conference in the country, he felt, in the NESCAC on men's basketball. And I didn't even answer that one. Okay, Coach, I'll give you top 5. Actually, Gordon and I both agree. We think top 3 for sure, if not the top conference in the last couple of years. But it's a fun little argument to have. Congratulations to Tufts. I just couldn't let that one go without having some little comment. Let's go back out, as we said, to the Central Region now and talk women's basketball. And one of the teams we're certainly, I've been intrigued by out of the CCIW has been Elmhurst. Coach Cillo has had a fascinating season. They are already 16-3, which matches the most wins they've had since 2010. They've done 16 wins 3 times, so they're already playing in what I would call gravy. 8-2 in the conference, which puts them second in the conference, a loss behind Wheaton. By the way, this is how things work. Wheaton's on the schedule for next week. There's a reason we sometimes schedule these guests. So joining us on the Hoopsville Skype hotline presented by the City of Salem is Coach Cillo of Elmhurst. Coach, welcome to Hoopsville.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Appreciate you taking the time. We'll go into some details as to why this whole timing thing is really fascinating for you. But let's talk about the season at hand. 16-3. This is a team that was 13-13 last year, 16-10 the year before, 14-12, 11-14. People can get the drift. You have to lose the next 6 to get back to the best record you had in 2012. You're playing incredibly good basketball. You're 8-2 in the conference, which is tremendous considering how tough the CCIW is as well.
Yeah, I just really give credit to our girls and our coaching staff. They've done a great job. I really feel like we have great leadership. We have 4 seniors this year, and they all contribute. They've all have started at different points throughout their time. And then just the experience. We play a rotation of 10 girls, and 8 out of our 10 girls are juniors and seniors. And we saw the difference, I'd say, from day one in practice, just the maturity in their decision-making from even some of them from last year to this year, just how much they've grown. And I think that's really helped us, especially in some of our closer games that we've had this year.
You had, certainly an interesting results across the board. In conference, though, you beat Illinois Wesleyan by 6. You unfortunately lost to Wheaton the first time you saw them by 18. Augustana then tripped you up. You get a chance with Augustana and Wheaton coming up to return the favor, and you have a tough loss to Loris. But you also have some other big wins. You beat North Central playing their game, apparently, 103-81. Has this well, let me ask this a different way. Was the season expected to be good, or are you literally playing above expectations?
For us, we always come in with such high standards, and we got picked, I believe it was 5th in our conference, and polls are polls, and until you prove them differently, they're going to be what they are, and we were disappointed in that, and we just kind of really used that to kind of fuel, the way this season's been going, because we felt like we were better than that because of how many people we were returning that got experience in the past year, and our non-conference schedule. I mean, it probably wasn't it wasn't as strong as what it's been in the past, but that just really allowed them to kind of gain some confidence, especially in November. Just because this year was a little different with us adding another team in the CCIW. We started conference a little earlier, so we had to be ready, and I would think that our November schedule kind of really helped us.
Yeah, interesting enough, the 3 losses come in a span of 5 games: Wheaton, Augustana, and Loris, with Illinois Wesleyan and Platteville wins sandwiched in between. So it's really just a little bit of a rough stretch right when you were talking about that conference schedule kind of rearing its head for you guys, a little bit different for some schools, very common. It's just the interesting thing about Division III. It's since that Loris game, since your break for the holidays, is where you've been on this tear since January 31st. You've won, 8 straight. And now you got Augustana and Wheaton, of course, on the road coming up. You're right. The conference picked you to finish 5th. I don't think anybody saw 13-13 and went, oh, hey, watch out for the Blue Jays. So here's an interesting twist on this. Has anything that the men did last year or the year before almost rubbed off on your team? And that's not a knock on your team, but sometimes that can happen.
The men and women's programs really support each other. And Coach Baines has always been fantastic. If we ever want to come in and, we'll bounce different things off of each other. And then even Chris Martin, who is now the men's assistant at Loris, who was the assistant coach at Elmhurst. I mean, I would always go in there and bounce a bunch of ideas off him too. So, I definitely think winning on one side also, it definitely seeps over to the other side.
It's something that jumps out at me is that, back in 2010, the year we talked about going 18-9, was the best in program history in 24 years. We're looking to eclipse that possibly this year. You only need 2 more wins, And you got to figure you're going to maybe get those at least in the next 6, if not win 6 games. Has it hit you guys how special this season has been?
Yes. I'm always paused because I'm like, we're not done with the season.
Right,
yet,
exactly. I realize that. Yeah.
It has just been fun. We had senior night yesterday just because that was our last home Saturday game.
Yeah.
And it just was, it was enjoyable. Like I really have really tried to make sure that and I think the girls too, have just enjoyed every second of this season because, we've been in this, field for a long time, and you don't always have these teams that just click the way they do. The chemistry, they just have really bought into everything. I have a phenomenal coaching staff, and everything that we have been, preaching since day one, they just have really bought into that. And, practices are fun. We try to keep it, a nice balance between being serious, but also being just kind of easygoing. And it has really worked for this group of girls.
I'll talk about another reason. I think it was senior night the other night for another reason, but we'll get to that. But you're out. Listen, the CCIW is tough. And I know you also had a non-conference schedule that I wouldn't say we're world beaters necessarily. You used it how you needed to, but Franklin and Greenville, Westminster, Aurora, Colorado College, there were some good teams in there and some not good. But the fact that in CCIW play and up until this point, you are still outscoring your opponents by 18 points a game is pretty impressive.
After we lost to Wheaton and Augie, it was kind of like you said with our non-conference not being as strong as what we needed to, and then turn around and face some CCIW conference. It was kind of a knock in the face, and we kind of went back a little bit to the drawing board because some things that we were able to get away with early on, once we got to conference, we found that we weren't able to. So we spent, a lot of time, especially on the offense, of really just making sure, that it was clicking. And our girls they're just really unselfish, and we've seen that especially in the month of January of just them, getting just as much enjoyment as them scoring the points as them giving, their teammate an assist. And that's really been the key, our inside and outside game, and being unselfish for us being able to outscore our opponents the way we have.
Let's talk quickly about the team. You have 4 seniors, as you pointed out, but 2 juniors are leading the way. Michaela Eppert at 19.2 points a game, 10.5 rebounds, so averaging a double-double, along with 2 assists a game, and shooting nearly 60% from the floor and 81% from the free throw line. Kayla Jones, a junior, 11 points a game, 4 rebounds a game, 2 assists a game, also shoots incredibly well, including outside the arc at 41%. And then you have your 2 seniors in Hannah Lippman and Kayla Summerlin, 2 of the 4, 8.8 and 7.8 points a game. So you're averaging 77 points a game. You only have 2 players in double figures. Those 2 are juniors. And you're outscoring your opponents by 18 with a lot of players contributing. This feels like you've got a couple big weapons, but that everybody can contribute.
Yeah, and and that's what I think what makes this team, so special is that you said we do have a couple, people that can definitely carry the load if we need to, but we have so many other people that contribute. And our bench points that we get in on a regular game on a regular basis has just been huge for us. And in the past, we just haven't had that. We'll have the starters that will get the majority of our points and not as many points off the bench. But this year, we get a good amount. I think the other day we got 24 or 26 points. And that's big because we're out a lot of times outscoring the other team. And that just, means there's not a drop off when we put in subs. The standard is still the same. And that just, I think, makes it much harder for, a team to guard us when the next person coming in can do just as much as the people that are starting.
The tough part is the final 5 games of the season. Not only are you playing 2 teams that beat you coming up, Augustana and Wheaton, and I should say 6 games coming up, because 5 of the 6 are on the road. Augustana's on the road, then Wheaton's on the road, then you're home against Carthage on a Wednesday, then you're on the road against North Central, Illinois Wesleyan, and Milliken. That is a tough stretch just in the fact that you have 5 of your 6 on the road. It's tough because you have Augustana and Wheaton and Illinois Wesleyan, all 3 teams you're battling for right now in that top group of the conference to try and make the conference tournament and be the best position possible. This is not easy work in the last couple of weeks here.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Our girls, we kind of talked about that early on about what their schedule was going to look like. So they've known this. Early on we played on the road quite a bit just to even help us for hopefully this stretch. But our girls are competitors, and as much as you probably want some of those games to be at home, that's the way the schedule has fallen. And to us, I know that we love the chance to be able to play the teams, like Wheaton that's ahead of us, Augustana and Wesleyan, they're just like a game or 2 games behind us, knowing that really, we're kind of in control of where we're going to finish this conference season. And, we see them in the last stretch, to where I feel like we're playing some of our best basketball we've played all year. And
then the curveball. You are expecting your second. And I don't know if I want to go as far as saying any day, but it feels like it could potentially be any day now. I know you're due to, I think your SID said at some point it will at least come in a couple of weeks, whether you want it to or not. So you're going to have to step away to some degree. And I certainly don't have any idea of how your plans are here, but how much of a wrinkle does that add? And I know you've got your primary assistant ready to step in, but how much of a shift is that, especially this late in the season, that the team can or will not be able to handle? And I'm speaking completely curious because I can't think of a scenario like this before.
I know. When I had my first child, I went on bed rest at week 32, and it happened it happened at the end of January, and it was so unexpected. So this year, in a different situation, the girls and our coaching staff have known, since day one that at some point I was going to have to leave because this kid was going to come during season.
Yeah, right.
Yes, at any point. So I've been very open about it. We've talked about the roles of the coaching staff, and so I've been able to take kind of even a step back at times, and especially here now that I'm just like you said, a week or 2 away, that I have to sit down quite a bit and practice. So my coaches will take on the offense, the defense, and just so that way, and we talk about roles so that way, we won't be able to we won't skip a beat at all. They won't miss me, I don't think, when I'm gone.
Well, I think they'll miss you, but I know what you're saying. Hopefully the team doesn't notice a difference in what is going on. Curiosity, during games, have you had to temper yourself a little bit?
I have. It's been hard. I'm not going to lie, during the North Central game when they run the system, it was difficult. I think I stood up all that game, but the rest of the games here lately, my assistants have been pretty much almost just making me sit down, which rightfully so. I need to sit down. And it's been good. I think I'm able to approach things a little bit differently. And so instead of even just kind of getting upset sometimes, we're able to talk through it as a team, and with our team being as mature as what they are, they definitely understand where we're at in front of us. And, I'm hoping that whenever this kid decides to come, that I'm able to just maybe miss one game and get back, because it has been such a fun season. I do have a bye weekend coming up, so I was trying to hope that maybe the kid would shoot for that weekend.
And I didn't want to ask, but since you brought it up, so you do hope you can get back and then maybe have the time with the child afterward. I mean, that's got to be a tough decision. I'm a father of 2. I know what my wife had to do when considering work. And when she would or wouldn't go back, and they were different, full time at one time, and the other time she was working on her own. So it was obviously different dynamics, and I almost equate the working on her own as being you in season. So what drives you, if you don't mind me asking, to say, you know what, I'm not going to take the time. I am going to come as much as I can, come right back into coaching. Obviously, late in the season helps. We're not talking December where you still have 4 months left. But what drives that decision for you personally?
I'm very lucky to have a supportive husband, to understand. He's also in the coaching field, so he understands, the drive of what it is. And, for coaches, this is our whole part of our season right here. You wait this long to get to this point, and it just, as long as, everything's okay with my health and the baby's health, and I can kind of come and go a little bit, it's been such a fun season. I feel like there's plenty of time me to rest, and make sure I bond with this little one right after the season's over with.
I'm sure we can bond him with a basketball if we have to in the meantime. Coach, I don't want to take any more of your time. I really appreciate you coming on. Fascinating story for the Blue Jays. It's so fun to go look at conference pages and not see the usual suspects, to see new teams emerge. And we're seeing a lot of that in the last few years. And to see your program up there is certainly fun. Obviously, tough finish to the schedule, but we're looking forward to seeing how you do. And good luck with the birth of the second one. By the way, do you know if it's a boy or a girl, or have you not released that? Or
no, I do not. My husband knows, but he has kept it a secret this whole time.
Wow. That's impressive. That he's A, he knows and you don't, and B, he's kept it a secret. I mean, that's pretty impressive. It's almost like a recruiting trick. Well, Coach, good luck the rest of the way. As always, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuning in?
No, just thank you very much for having us on this program, and for letting everyone know a little bit more about Elmhurst College, because I feel like we're on a very good roll. It's been a fun journey.
Yes. Well, it's been fun to watch you guys again. Tough stretch, but I'm looking forward to seeing how it finishes. Good luck with everything down the road, and we'll talk to you soon, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Coach Cillo joining us from Elmhurst. Again, the team is 16-3, 8-2 in the conference. Incredible stretch to go, but it should be fun to watch. We're looking forward to it. When we come back, we're going to stick with the women's basketball theme, and we're going to go to our WBCA Center Court segment. Alex Richie from Oglethorpe joins us. What's it mean to be coaching a program that he's helped turn around under the age of 30? The WBCA has honored him for that achievement. We'll hear from him coming up in a pre-taped segment after their tough loss to Hendricks today. We're still ahead. Dan Miller from LeTourneau and Karen Harvey from Montclair State. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3 Hoops from the WBCA NABC studios. We'll be back with more Hoopsville after this.
For the love of the game. That's what it's all about, they say. But for those of us who are Division III student athletes, it's more than that.
It's more about team and the schools and communities we represent.
And for the many of us blessed with the strength to compete in sport at the college level, we understand that with what we were given comes a special obligation.
Our obligation to help those who have their own special needs and whose love for the game is no less intense.
That is why NCAA Division III teamed up with Special Olympics. Since August of 2011, we and others from Division III campus communities have volunteered more than 250,000 hours, time away from the classroom and practice field, reaching across the country to coach and mentor Special Olympics athletes.
And to learn that in giving, we receive so much more in return. Help us keep that dream alive.
Be part of it.
Get involved.
You can make a difference.
Welcome back to Hoopsville. My name is Melissa Hodgson. I'm the head coach at the Wheaton College in Massachusetts and a member of the Women's Basketball Coaches Association. We hope you enjoy the show. Now back to Dave with the WBCA Center Court.
On the air usually every Sunday and every Thursday, 7 o'clock Eastern Time. Of course, the next two shows that will be different. We've got the Hoopsville Marathon show coming up on Thursday. We'll start at 10 a.m. Eastern and still be on the air at 10 p.m. Eastern and maybe a little later. We have a bad habit of going longer than 12 hours. And then a week from tonight is the Super Bowl. We're not crazy enough to try and do a live show during the Super Bowl. We will go on earlier in the day, most likely 1 or 2 o'clock Eastern Time, that time to be determined. Otherwise, we are on the air 7 o'clock Eastern Time for most of our Sundays and Thursdays. If for some reason you can't watch us live, not a problem. We have our shows on demand, or you can listen and download the podcasts anytime you want and catch up with the program. If you got questions for our mailbag coming up later in the show, email us, hoopsville at d3hoops.com. That's hoopsville at d3hoops.com. Gonna start, we're going to go into a little bit more women's basketball orientated here. Just got done talking to Elmhurst head coach. Going to jump from the central region into the south region for our WBCA Center Court segment. Of course, WBCA, a wonderful partner of ours now here on Hoopsville, and we look forward on the upcoming Hoopsville Marathon to talk to their executive director, Danielle Donahue. She'll be on the show coming up here on Thursday, but in the meantime, we have a center court segment to talk about. We're going to talk to a coach who's rather young. I say that because I got a special honor now at the WBCA, 30 for 30, basically. That's not the exact title, but we'll talk more about it. Oglethorpe women's basketball is probably lucky to have him. He's an Oglethorpe grad. He also was an assistant coach for Oglethorpe, and he seemingly has turned the Oglethorpe women's basketball program around. Storming Petrels doing pretty well under Alex Richie, despite the fact that we catch him on a weekend he probably would love to have back. So joining us on the City of Salem Hoopsville hotline is Alex Richie. Coach, welcome to Hoopsville.
Coach, thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate all you do for small college basketball, and it's an honor to be able to talk with you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. We should point out, we had an Alex Richie on the show talking about the Stevens Point investigation a few weeks ago. That was the one who won a national championship. That is a different Alex Richie, in case anybody is curious. Different spelling of the last name. But Alex from Oglethorpe joins us. Of course, both guys played Division III basketball, so it gets a little confusing. Alex, we obviously do catch you on a tough weekend. We'll talk more about that in the meantime. But tell us just a little bit about the fact that your kind of trajectory, as it were, is rather interesting. Really good in high school basketball in Georgia. You went to Oglethorpe and played some years under Coach Philip Ponder, and then you decided, I'm going to go out into the real world. That didn't last long, did it?
No, not at all. I was about 8 months in, and Coach Ponder gave me a call and offered me an opportunity to come back, and I put my 2 weeks notice in that day just to get the opportunity to come back and have that opportunity. And my boss at the time was a big college basketball fan, and he totally understood and knew this was something that I'd really been looking to do, and it was really just such a blessing to be able to go and get my career started for somebody that I had thought so highly of, and Coach Ponder, who gave me the opportunity to play college basketball and get to work for him, and we've always had a great relationship, so it's been really special to be able to coach at my alma mater.
What exactly was the draw out of the business world back into coaching? I've heard the stories. Lots of people will give their different variations of it. Sometimes it's because coaching is too strong a call. Sometimes because the career path they took wasn't the right one, or some variation and combination therein. What was the exact reason why that call from Coach Ponder was so successful?
Well, I think it comes down to a couple things, but one, the opportunity just to work with young people and help them achieve what they want to achieve in life outside of just basketball was something that really drew me to getting back into coaching. And then two, obviously just the passion for the game. You know, I miss the game, and you playing in men's leagues, it's not really the same as being in that competitive atmosphere. And I don't get to play as much as I used to, and I still try to keep the weight off, but it's definitely enjoyable to be in that locker room, to be on those bus rides, be on those team meals. It's been special to be able to be a part of that as a coach now.
So you were able to be an assistant coach with Coach Ponder for a couple of years, top 25 berth while you were there, certainly some success. That certainly probably made it pretty successful and pretty enjoyable for you. Why the transition to the women's team? The women's program prior to your arrival certainly had struggled. 5-21 on back-to-back seasons, 8-17 prior to that. I mean, it had been a long time in the sense of the feelings since 09 and 08 when they had won 27 games. What was the draw to the women's game, and why'd you make that leap?
So my father, who is actually on my coaching staff, which is special in itself, was a high school women's coach in the metro Atlanta area for 12 years. One of the first things I did when I got the job was name him to our staff, and he really helped us on the recruiting front. And that's just been an amazing experience for our family. And, that I kind of felt like that was going to be the opportunity for me to be a head coach, especially early on, just to be able to grow and learn in my profession. And when the opportunity came, I knew that opportunities like that don't come around all the time. So for our administration to believe in me and to put their trust in me to help turn this program around was something that I couldn't pass on, and it's been very special. And it just comes down to the fact that we really are passionate about the young people that we're bringing into our program, and they're the ones that are making the difference. It just makes my life so much enjoyable, the fact that we've got such great kids. And I remembered, those days with Katie Kolick and Anna Finley when they went to the Final Four, so many great players, the work ethic that it took, and the culture that was around the program. And we're doing our best to try to get back to that level, and we've got a long way to go, but we're really excited about the strides that we're making.
Such great years under Coach Ponder as a player and then as an assistant. Obviously, those 2 years we talked about, top 25 rankings and the like. I'm surprised Coach Ponder was so willing to let you go.
he kept asking me, "Are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure?" But he was instrumental in my hire, and just has been nothing but supportive and helping me develop and grow. And we talk every day, have lunch every day of the week, and he's just there for me to throw ideas off of, and can be more supportive and more excited. It's been really good for our two programs to really develop the relationship. We travel and spend so much time together, especially in conference play with the men, and to have a cheering section at our road games, and for them to be behind our young ladies who are doing such fantastic things on the court. It's really special to be a part of. You,
as we mentioned at the beginning, the proper title is you were honored with the WBCA 30 under 30 honoree. 30 coaches, assistant coaches under the age of 30, honored by the WBCA for their success, their work, etc. Inaugural award last year. You were one of 5 Division III honorees, one of 3 head coaches in Division III to get that honor. You had to be a little bit humbled by that, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was. I can't tell you how special that was for myself and for my family. Not necessarily winning as many games as we wanted, so we knew that. I always make the joke, hey, if we had just won more games, then I would feel a lot better about this award. But it just is a testament to the people that have been in our program, the young women that continue to work hard every day and persevere through adversity, and have taken this program to new levels. Every year that we've worked in the program, we've increased our win total, and we're in an upward trajectory, and I'm really excited about the direction that we're moving. And the campus has really started to engulf our team too, which has been really nice. We had some great home crowds. People are really excited about the things that we're doing, and it's a testament to the great people in our program who are working hard every day.
It's interesting, again, you're the head coach. As you mentioned, your father, Jack Richie, came on board. And as you mentioned, a pretty successful women's coach himself in the metro area. It's almost like the women's game's almost in your blood to some degree. What is it about the women's game that you find so fascinating? Because we all know it's a very different game than the men's side, which obviously you got a chance to play.
Man, there's just so many different aspects that are different from what we had on the men's side when I was coaching with the men. But the best thing about coaching our group specifically, and I can't speak for everyone's group, is they want to get better. They listen. They have great attitudes and terrific work ethic. We never have to stress about them in terms of their academic experience. They are way smarter than I am in terms of the classroom, and they do everything off the court in the way that we want, which as a coach, I couldn't be happier about. We're trying to develop a culture for a program that's more than just basketball. And, for the last 2 years, we've been one of the highest GPAs on our campus. Last semester, we had like a 3.4 team GPA, and we've got students that are going to be doctors and lawyers and owners of businesses. And Oglethorpe is a high academic place. And so, we're really excited about the fact that we're not doing it just on the court, but we're also doing it off the court, which I'm really happy about.
What's it like to now boss your father around?
He's gotten to boss me around for plenty, but it's so special and I know my mom likes it because it gets him out of the house some too, and so we've really enjoyed the opportunity to work with each other. And I've got another 2 assistants, Coach Raina Ellis, who we picked up this year. She does a lot of our skill development work, and I tell our girls she's the best player in the gym every time she walks in there. And she's in her early 30s. And then Coach Frisbee, who's been with me since the beginning, was actually here with the previous staff. She's been nothing but great and a rising star, I think, in Division III women's hoops. And so I'm really I couldn't be happier with our staff and the hard work that they put in to get this program to where it is now.
Well, we talk about the program's turnaround. Like we said, 2014, 5-21, and it had been back-to-back 5-21 seasons. Certainly not, the best. The program, again, pretty far removed, it would feel, from that back-to-back 27-win seasons. 11-15 in 2015, 13-14 last year. Now we're sitting at 12-8 after a rough weekend. We'll talk about that in a second. You talk about the turnaround. The turnaround is dramatic. That is a huge turnaround. What's been the secret?
I just think that we've spent a lot of time on the recruiting trail, and we've brought in some really talented young ladies. We have 0 seniors on our roster this year, and we're playing 1 junior. So we're excited about what the future brings. And, what we've brought in terms of style of play, we're playing very up-tempo on the offensive end. Well, specifically in the first 2 years. Our first 2 years, we played really up-tempo on the offensive end, which is drastic from what they were doing in the past. This year, we focused more on the defensive end of the ball, and we're still playing relatively quick, but we knew that if we want a chance to play for an NCAA tournament berth, it was going to be done in the conference tournament, and it was going to be done on the defensive end. So we've really put an emphasis on our half-court defense this year, and we've really stepped it up in terms of communication and strategy on that side of the ball. So it just continues to get better, but it really just is a testament to our people, to the girls in the program, and they work hard every day, and they listen to everything that we say, and they're just a joy to be around. So that's a lot of fun for a young coach to be able to grow and develop myself, just like they're growing and developing with me. So it's been a lot of fun.
It's fascinating to see how quick this turnaround has happened. You're sitting now tied for second in the conference after this rough weekend. To even imagine you'd be in that position in the SAA at this point in your tenure has got. I mean, obviously, what the potential is, but it's got to happen. And as you point out, with a young team, it's pretty impressive to be in this position, despite the fact you went 0-2 this weekend.
Yeah, and we appreciate that, and we're cherishing it. We know that every opportunity that we come on the court is a learning experience. And obviously we had two tough learning experiences this weekend, but my kids are all out watching the men's game right now, and they get along great. And we just try to move on to the next play, the next game. But they're totally invested in what we're doing, and they understand that opportunities like this to be in the hunt this late in the season, they're rare, so you got to cherish it, and you got to put in that little extra effort, that little extra work to take it to the next level, and that's what we're trying to do this year. I know we're young, and people say, hey, this could be a year away, but we're really focused on the task ahead in front of us over the next couple of weeks to put us in a position to potentially play for a berth.
For those wondering, we're talking to Coach Alex Richie after their game against Hendricks. They have an 8-some-odd-hour bus trip back to Oglethorpe in Atlanta, and so we are not talking to him live. That would have been a little bit brutal on a bus. You just never know how that's going to be. Obviously a tough trip. Rhodes got you guys earlier, and then Hendricks beat you guys today. Is this just an example of just where we are in the season, where the grind is a little bit wearing? You lose by 14 against Rhodes, and then on Friday, and then you lost by 21 today. Is this just a bad weekend, and maybe the youth showing a little bit of its inexperience?
We talk about the proverbial wall.
Yeah.
The end of January, and how it can really affect a young team. And we were talking about it even as a staff that, sometimes when you have that senior who can really take it to the next level and bring everybody together, we don't necessarily have that. So it's one of those things that I felt like this weekend we were competing hard. We really just couldn't throw the ball in the ocean. We shot terrible both nights. We had some open looks. Credit to both the teams that we played, though. Coach Matt Dean at Rhodes, who's been there. I think he's as good a coach as there is really in the South. Made some great defensive adjustments that we hadn't seen before, and really took us out of our offensive rhythm on Friday night. And Rhodes, although they have a tough record right now, they are way better than their record. They played a tough schedule. They were injured early in the season, and I think they're extremely dangerous. And Hendricks they've got the best player in our league with Sarah Dislin, who you guys have probably talked about before, and if you haven't, she's special. She's just flat out special, and when they get her going and her teammates feed off her energy, they're as good as anybody in our league as well. So 2 tough road games. Fortunate enough, we only lost 1 game's worth of ground with some upsets on the other side, on the travel side. So we're still just sitting 2 games back of Birmingham with a lot of basketball to be played, and we're going to just use this opportunity that we lost to this weekend, but we still remain relatively healthy, knocking on wood on that. And, hopefully we can get back on our grind next weekend on the road at Center and Swanee.
We won't mention it. Okay, I will mention it was Rhodes' second win of the season. Obviously not how you drew it up, but this is a Rhodes program not that far removed from a heck of an NCAA tournament run a few years ago.
It's about culture for them.
Sure.
They've been there in the past, and they expect every opportunity to go out when they're playing in front of their Friday night crowd that they're still in that championship level, and they played that way. We know they're extremely dangerous, and Coach Matt Dean, exudes a lot of confidence into them, and they played with it on Friday night. So big-time credit and props to Coach and to their team for playing really well on Friday.
Started the season with a loss at Emory, which is basically down the street from you guys, then lost to Benedictine in a tournament in Indiana. Those are the only other time besides this weekend you've had back-to-back losses. But you're also in a tough stretch here. We're now halfway through a stretch of 4 games on the road. Next weekend you'll travel to Center in Tennessee, and then you'll play Sewanee. So you've got a bit of a haul here. Now you'll be rewarded as the next 3 will be at home: Birmingham, Southern, Millsaps, and Berry to finish up the regular season. How important is it, like you did at the beginning of the season, to forget these losses, kind of rejuvenate the team so you can stay in position where you are right now in the conference, despite the fact you're on the road for the next 2?
Yeah, one of the best parts about having a young team is the fact that not long after the game they can really just start laughing with each other and cutting up and really start to focus on the next weekend. So I'm not too stressed about them. I know that they'll come to work this week to practice with the mentality that, how important this upcoming weekend is. But we try to express every game is important at this point in the season as we're playing for seeding, playing for potential hosting, which may be a long shot now with us being 2 back with not many left to play. But, we're going to just keep working to get better every day because we know with our style of play, and the thing that I think is the best part of our team right now is our depth. And our depth, could it really help us come tournament time when you got to win 3 in a row. So we've got a long way to go to reach our full potential with this team this year, and I'm excited to take the journey with them over the next couple of weeks.
And we keep talking about youth. There is no seniors on this squad. There's 1 junior on the squad. It's a bulk of sophomores, a handful of freshmen. For the rest of the SAA, they're probably none too pleased that you're already having this success. Laura Ransom, a sophomore, leading the way at 12.5 points a game and 7 rebounds a game. Jada Triplett, sophomore, 12 points a game, 2.5 rebounds a game. Bailey Charles, sophomore, 8 points a game. Alexandria Brown, sophomore, 5.5 points a game. They're getting a lot of experience and a lot of spotlight on them now. That's got to be beneficial down the road.
Yeah, and we played them a lot as freshmen, too. We knew for us to get in this position this year, we had to play them a lot last year. And that was tough some days when you're learning on the fly with a bunch of freshmen, but it's definitely paid off for us this year, and just kind of had to have that long-term view, and we're just continuing to get better every day and stay on the recruiting trail in terms of continuing to bring in top-level talent that's going to fit our culture and continuing to get better every day. And this group, that group of sophomores and the group of freshmen have really bought into that. We've got a junior, Rebecca Spry, who has been a great leader for us as well, and she's technically a redshirt sophomore, but she's junior academically, 4.0 student, had an ACL injury as a freshman, and she'll be able to do whatever she wants after graduation. She's been fantastic for us. So it's just a really special group, and I just enjoy coaching them every day.
Well, we look forward to seeing how the team does the rest of the way. Obviously, a lot still to play for in the final 5 games of the regular season. Obviously, conference tournament play as well to follow after that. Before we let you go, though, we do always have a handful of questions that we ask each coach in the WBCA Center Court segment to talk about. If you don't mind, do you mind having a little fun with us?
Oh, 100%.
All right, cool.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely. So these are questions we ask all of, and that way we kind of almost can go back and compare just to hear different answers. So first thing, what's your favorite thing about coaching, especially in Division III?
Man, just the full college experience for these student athletes. They can be involved in other things other than sport. They're great students, and they're great people to work with. So that's the number one.
That's a pretty good answer. What's your biggest pet peeve?
I am a stickler for being on time. So I tell our kids all the time, bus is leaving at 8:25. You need to be down there by 8:20, and we're leaving at 8:25. So be on time so we can stick to our plan.
On time is 5 minutes late. What's your favorite rule or nuance of the game?
Favorite rule, and on the women's side, I've loved the ball advance rule under a minute. I think that just brings such excitement to our game. It really helps in terms of late game situations. A lot of fun. I hope the men move to that, and I think it'd be beneficial. And the quarters have been great to me. I think that's been terrific. In our conference this year, we've moved to strictly media timeouts, utilizing media timeouts, and that's been a learning process for me early on in the season. But by now, we're all at the same page in terms of utilizing our timeout situation. So number one for me is definitely the ball advance under a minute.
I will agree with you on quarters. You and I will have to agree to disagree about moving the ball up, but we'll talk about that some other time.
All good.
Any rule you want to see added, removed, or changed?
Man, I think this. I've loved the way the game has been called this year, and I can't really say there's anything that I'd like to change. I do like the ball advance. I do like the quarters. I think it's definitely been a benefit. So nothing to change right now.
Any pregame ritual or superstition?
Oh, man. Pregame ritual superstitions were different as a player than as a coach. And they definitely are different this year than last year. It's always just listening to great music with the team. And we are dancing in the locker room before. We really like to keep it loose with our group. And we know that when they play loose, they're playing better. So I just try to make them laugh and cut up with them a little bit just to keep them loose before they go out there and play. And I think that has boded success for our program.
We're almost done here. This is ironic considering you're about to get on a bus for an 8-hour trip back to Atlanta. What's the craziest travel experience?
This is probably such a long trip for a lot of teams.
Yeah.
We've actually, in terms of crazy, I wouldn't say it's crazy. I think it's kind of cool. But every couple of years, we've been able to take our teams abroad. So last year, I was able to take our group to Costa Rica on our fall break, and we played some games down there, and we went whitewater rafting. And I had a bunch of freshmen in a whitewater rafting boat, and they flipped 2 times in the first rapid, and I was just so panicked by the fact that they were falling so much so quickly. And but we all survived, which was the best part, and they had a great experience. And those GoPro photos came out terrific. So that was a pretty cool thing that we've been doing with our program. And we try to make it so every kid that comes through our program in their 4-year experience will do a broad trip with the team. So
that's pretty cool. How would your assistants, and this is going to be interesting considering one of them is your father, describe you as a coach?
Oh, man, funny. Each one would probably describe me a little different. I think they would say that I'm pretty loose, but I show the intensity when the time comes with intensity. But we just try to keep it loose, and I think all of our personalities feed off one another. Like my father, obviously in his 60s, gives the dad away from home to the young ladies. Both Coach Ray and Coach Frisbee just are very good with their moral support of them whenever they need anything, and I just try to keep them loose, like I said, and allow them to have fun and tell them how much I love them, how much I appreciate them, because that's just a big part of coaching to me is letting your players know how much they mean to you. And we break our huddles with together and family every time, and that's couldn't be more true for our group.
What would you tell a recruit that gets them excited to commit to Oglethorpe?
I think the most exciting, well, we've got a couple things that are exciting about Oglethorpe itself. I think our location for a small college is the best out of anywhere in the country. We're right in the best part of Atlanta. There's so much to do. We have great academics. And in terms of basketball, if you look at our team and our dynamic, we think we're going to be good for the next couple of years. And I have no problem playing young players. So the opportunity to play for a freshman is always available if they earn it. That's kind of my mentality, and I think that's the way college basketball has kind of moved the last couple of years. But just the opportunity to be a part of a program that we think is going to be around for the next couple of years in terms of competitive, hopefully on the conference side, and then looking forward to potentially be a national contenders like we saw in the past with those great teams in the early part of the 2000s. So just the excitement that's a going and growing program and a great location are the two things that I try to express to our recruits when we get them around here. And then most importantly, when we get a recruit on campus, we have such great young people in our program, and really we've had a lot of success when our recruits come to campus. They leave the place loving it and feeling comfortable enough to be here.
Cool. Finally, and this is a long-term one for you most likely, when you retire, what do you hope people will remember you as a coach?
I hope people look at me more than just a coach, but they look at me as somebody who helped them achieve what they wanted to achieve in their life. And I tell recruits and I tell my players all the time that our relationship isn't just 4 years of you playing for me, it's the next 40. And I want to be there and involved in your life to help you achieve your dreams. And so being a coach is a good platform to do that, but I'm all about building relationships, and hopefully the relationships that we're building with our players here in this program are going to last us for the next 40, 50 years.
Great. Well, Alex, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here on Hoopsville in the WBCA Center Court segment. Appreciate you taking the time. Safe travels back to Atlanta. Good luck the rest of the season. As always, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuning in?
Dave, thanks so much just for the opportunity to talk a little bit about our program. And Oglethorpe is a very special place, and I've had just a blessed opportunity to be here as the basketball coach, and hopefully we can continue to have some success on the court and continue to grow and build for the future. So just thank you again for everything you're doing for college basketball at the small school level.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us, and good luck.
Thanks, Dave.
Alex Richie joining us here on the City of Salem Hoopsville hotline in the WBCA Center Court. Appreciate him taking the time. Again, team is 12-8 overall. They are in second place at 6-3 in the conference. They've got Center and Sewanee on the road coming up next weekend. Then they finish up at home against Birmingham Southern, Millsaps, and Berry the rest of the way. We'll see what happens in the conference tournament. Good young team to watch for the next few years. Going to take a break. When we come back, we will stay down in the South and we'll head over to Texas. Talk LeTourneau men's basketball. You probably haven't noticed, but the Yellow Jackets have also come out of nowhere to be on top of their conference and in the top of their division. We'll talk to their head coach, Dan Miller. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3 Hoops from the WBCA NABC studios. More Hoopsville after this.
I used to never really talk. Ever. I was afraid if I said something wrong, everyone would laugh at me. But then I started to play golf with Special Olympics. It helped me to find my voice. And now everyone else is speechless.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and I know how powerful words can be. The term gay doesn't mean stupid, lame, or less than.
So I pledge to speak up if I hear the term gay used in a derogatory way or any other homophobic terms.
If you can play in Division III.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and my teammates unconditionally accepted me as part of their family. So now I pledge to do the same for others. If you can play in Division III.
Monday edition. If you've got questions for us, don't forget the Hoopsville Mailbag coming up. Hoopsville at d3hoops.com is your email address. If for some reason you're watching listen to the podcast, watching this on demand, whatever the case may be, and you can't participate, in tonight's mailbag, no worries. Monday edition. If you've got questions for us, don't forget the Hoopsville Mailbag coming up. Hoopsville at d3hoops.com is your email address. If for some reason you're listen to the podcast, watching this on demand, whatever the case may be, and you can't participate in tonight's mailbag, no worries. Email us anyway. We'll answer your question on an upcoming show. Granted, the upcoming show is the Hoopsville Marathon Show on Thursday, starting at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. We'll go 12 hours. So we'll answer questions throughout the show. We'll see how well produced I can make that segment, but we'll at least answer your questions. So plenty of time, plenty of opportunities to ask us questions, and we look forward to that. Don't forget, you can also interact with us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Instagram and Twitter, both the same handles, at D3Hoopsville and hashtag Hoopsville. And Facebook, where we're streaming the show live, facebook.com/Hoopsville. Also, don't forget the Hoopsville fundraising project is underway. We'll certainly talk more about that at the end of the show. I'm going to head down to the South now, switch into men's basketball coverage, and talk to a team who, in some ways, you could say came out of nowhere. In other cases, you kind of could say maybe this one was brewing for a little while. It may have not started the way LeTourneau wanted to start the season, as they were 4-4 midway through December. Since then, they've been on a tear to the mark of 12 in a row, which is a program record. and they have turned the program around to a 16-4 mark. They are on top the ASC East, used to football, by a game with 5 games left. LeTourneau could be the talk of the South region. And joining us on the City of Salem Skype hotline is their head coach, Dan Miller. Coach, welcome to Hoopsville.
Hey, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
I appreciate you taking the time. Seriously, 12 games in a row. The 4-4 start was probably ominous, and it has been anything but. The confidence with this program has got to be climbing on a daily basis.
Right, no doubt. The guys are confident, but they're staying in the moment. We just try to get a little bit better each day. Even our 4-4 start, we were right in some games. We gained a little bit of confidence in the exhibition game playing Division I Northwest State, which we led almost the whole game. We had a double-digit lead on them, and I think our guys learned then that we got something special here if we just get a little bit better each day. And we're playing well. We still have a lot of basketball ahead of us, but I like the feel of the team right now.
When we talk about obviously the ASC and LeTourneau and the schedule you have, it is tough to gauge it against the rest of the country. You pretty much play primarily Texas schools. If I look at this correctly, I see a couple outside the state, obviously in conference, and a game against Rust, for example, et cetera. So for us, especially myself outside of Texas, it's hard to say, okay, I know exactly what LeTourneau is, or I know how well they're playing, because I can't gauge it against anybody else on a national level. So with that in mind, give us kind of the spiel as to just how good you guys may be, and not to be maybe mean. I certainly don't want to be that way. Or is it, is it smoke and mirrors we're trying to read through? Does that make any sense? Like, we're trying to gauge you guys, and it's a little hard to do.
Right. No, first of all, I think we have a great conference. The ASC has been a great conference. It was just a few years ago, Mary Hardin Baylor didn't win our conference and got all the way to the national championship game and took second place, in the NCAA tournament. Year in, year out, the ASC beats up on each other. Yeah. And every game you play in the ASC is going to be a tough game. And I think our conference fares well when we do step outside nationally. We probably don't. We're in the South a lot. We're in Texas a lot. Other than Louisiana College and Ozarks, of course, Belhaven now in Mississippi. But look at what Hardin Simmons did when they traveled. I think it was between Christmas and New Year's, and they won a couple of games against a nationally ranked team. And so we believe the ASC is one of the better conferences, and we believe right now we're playing as good as anybody in the conference. So we think we have a lot of basketball ahead of us yet, so we're not done.
Yeah, I got to see Hardin Simmons, obviously, at the D3Hoops.com Classic in Las Vegas. Certainly impressive, which is why you guys do, in a way, jump out to me. You lost to Hardin Simmons. How was your last loss? 69-65. Right before that, they weren't at full strength quite yet. I think that's what makes them scary. What were you guys able to take from that game, which was obviously close, that you've now used in this 12-game stretch, which includes 2 wins over Texas Tyler, who's a game behind you in the conference?
Right. The Hardin Simmons game here was a real grinded out. It was an excellent game. They're missing O'Neal, one of their better players, no doubt, but they're loaded. They still had a great team, and we felt we should have won the game. We had them at home here. It was kind of a back and forth game. We had a couple shots down the stretch that we just didn't hit. What I took out of that game, and I think our guys took out of that game, is we knew Hardin Simmons, was kind of the class of the conference right now this year with the seniors they have, and Coach Karst does a great job there. And we felt we were mad. We should have won the game. And I think that fire really has sparked us, that we don't want to be in these close ASC games and not come out on top. Our guys hate losing more than they love winning. So we're trying to avoid that, obviously, like everybody else. But that Hardin Simmons game, I do think it kind of sparked us in this run a little bit. And since then, I will say, I think we're playing 40 minutes better. I think we were playing good in spurts in the beginning of the season, but we weren't doing it for 40 minutes. And right now, that's kind of our motto. Just lock in for 40 minutes. It's going to be a battle. If we do that, we feel we'll come out on top.
You guys are outscoring your opponents by 9.5, 10 points a game. You're scoring 86-plus points, almost 87 points a game. You've only had 3 games where you've scored in the 60s. They were a loss to Texas College, non-Division III, a win over McMurray, and then the back-to-back game with Hardin Simmons scoring 65 and a 4-point loss. Otherwise, most of your games are in the 80s. You've had a couple of 100-point games, a couple of 90-point games. Does that mean that your offense is that high octane, or is it because the defenses you're facing maybe just aren't, as what we're used to in the terms of good?
Right. No, I'm going to say our offense is the high octane. I'm going to go with that. There's some good defenses in the ASC. We're blessed on our team because we got 5 guys on the court who can score at all times. We have a lot of shooters. In our system, we're scoring 86, 87. I think we might have cracked the top 20 in scoring in NCAA D3 last week. But, we're doing that without, we haven't pressed one time all year. We don't trap. We just play straight man-to-man defense. And, sometimes, of course, our steals turnovers, can lead to points. But for the most part, we just come down, and I think we're very efficient on offense, points per possession. And, we run a motion offense, similar, I guess, to the Division I level. A lot of concepts from both Notre Dame and Villanova. And although we don't have the talent players that they have, I think we run the offense at a high level, and we do have very good shooters. And we can also go inside. Our post players are playing very efficient. If you look at the field goal percentage of Loggins and Seidel and Herrera, that's helping a lot. So we can play both inside and outside. We can play fast and we can play half court style. So we're happy with the way our offense is going, but we know we got to keep it going, to accomplish what we want to at the end of the season here, though.
I think Villanova showed last year you can use some outside shooting to win a national championship.
Yeah.
Just a thought. You talk about the shooting, and let's talk about this team. For the most part, it's a bit of a young team. It's only got 2 seniors on it, and one of them is one of your top scorers on the team in Jeff Martin. The rest are underclassmen. So and we'll talk a little bit about what the future may hold. But you've got 5 guys essentially in double figures, 6 really if you count 9.3 coming from Caleb Herrera. But you're led by Alec Koloff, an underclassman at 15.2 points a game and 5 rebounds. Jeff Martin, that senior, 13.5 points a game, 6 assists a game, and 5 rebounds a game. Both of them shoot over 40% from the floor. Nate West, 13 points a game, 3.5 rebounds, 43% from the floor. I just want to point out the percentages here because it's ridiculous. Christian Seidel, 10.8 points a game, 4.3 rebounds a game, shoots 54% from the floor. This one's the ridiculous one. Caleb Loggins, 10.5 points, 6 rebounds, 65% from the floor. Obviously, he misses. But does it feel like he misses? I mean, he seems like a go-to guy every time down the court.
Right. And Caleb is such a high efficient guy, on offense. And, we can go inside to Caleb Loggins, and he hits the 15-footer at a very high level. But, the most amazing thing about Caleb is he is our unsung hero when it comes to doing all the little things. He's a good rebounder. If you look at his shot blocks, he leads us in block shots. He took a game-winning charge against ETBU last week. He usually guards the best offensive player if it's 3, 4, or 5 position, and he's been a great. Last year he was the freshman of the year in the ASC East, and he took a big jump from his freshman to sophomore year. So I can't say enough good things about Caleb Loggins.
So for argument's sake, you've got 6 guys in double figures. You've got a couple guys inside who are shooting the lights out of the building from short range. You got the other guys who are certainly shooting well from deep. You seem to have a lot of weapons. I mean, you're shooting 37% from the field as a team. By the way, Seidel's also shooting 51%, 52% from beyond the arc, 44% for Koloff. What don't you do well on offense?
Well, like everybody, we have to improve some things. We have times where sometimes we dribble a little too much and get a little dribble happy, and when the ball isn't moving, we're not at our best. We try to talk about good to great with the Spurs concepts with that extra pass. I got a good shot. If I make that one more pass, we're going to have a great shot. So there's times when we're not doing that. And like everybody, we can have some times when we're not hitting through stretches, but we believe through 40 minutes we're hard to defend with our weapons. And we have some guys coming down there below those 6 guys that we have a lot of confidence in. We even have some guys like Cordell Jackson. He doesn't play much, and we needed a little spark against ETBU. He comes in there. It really is his first playing time in a close game that he came in and he sparked us on the defensive end, hit both his shots. So, we really like our team top to bottom. Even our young development guys seem to get better every day in practice. So we're excited about now, the present, and the future of LeTourneau basketball.
And you mentioned the future. Obviously, we've turned this program around. Last season, you guys were 5-20. The last 2 seasons, you were 5-20. Haven't been above 500 since 2009 when we mentioned those 16 wins. We mentioned you only have 2 seniors. One of them is obviously key, but the rest are coming back next year. And while I know we're talking about this season, and I know you'd love to win a conference title, make the NCAA tournament, etc., right this minute, the future does look good here for the Yellow Jackets. What you guys are building looks like it has some sustainability, not we've got a bunch of seniors and we don't know what's going to happen next year type scenario.
Right. There's no doubt. What's important to me is when I took this job 3 years ago is, I was thankful Coach Dykey, had the confidence in me to turn the program around. The previous years before they struggled a little bit. They had some good years and did some good things, but, they were just down in terms of wins for a little while. I think before I got here, it was, 4 wins, 3 wins, 11 wins, and then 5 wins. So my first year was tough. We had a team and we only won 5 games, and that was real tough personally. I know with my assistant coach, Coach Wallace, and the players, but we had to start somewhere. And that first recruiting class for last season was so important. That's when we brought in Cillo and Caleb Loggins and Kohoff and Martin transferred in, and we really felt that class was our future, to set the tone, not just for them, but then, to follow behind it when they see the winning take place. So last year we improved from that 5 wins my first year to 12 wins. We were 12-13 going into the ASC tournament. We lost in the ASC tournament, so I guess we were 12-14. But we had a winning record in conference, 8-7. Yeah. And that was the first time that was done in a little while for LeTourneau in the ASC. So it was a stepping stone last year. And now this year, in my 3rd year here, I feel like we're really turning the corner to where we should be. But we talk about it every day with the guys. It's important that we're getting a little bit better every day because we want to sustain this as a program. We will lose Jeff and we'll lose Eric Roberson, who's a good leader in the locker room, maybe not seeing the playing time, but he does a lot of important things for our team. But we have a lot of good players returning. We're recruiting a lot of good players. Hopefully we'll get. So if you're one of our recruits watching the show, we hope you come to LeTourneau. But we feel that it's important to sustain a winning program, and this is a big step this year in what we're doing.
Sorry, Coach. I'm well past my eligibility status. I'm pretty much done. I apologize. This is that time of year we are looking at the SOS now. The regional rankings will come out in about a little less than 2 weeks, week and a half for the first time. So at this point, we kind of understand what those SOS numbers look like. Right now, our expert thinks you'll be 3rd ranked in the country or in the region. Obviously, with a good record, your SOS above 500. But the truth is, 4 of your next 5 opponents have below 500 records. That SOS is going to come a little bit south. Not completely. There's other factors involved. So, while you might look at the first regional rankings and be happy about them when they come out, assuming the stat, what we're assuming, how do you keep the guys focused on the fact that one slip up could honestly put you guys on the outside looking in, and that you really don't have a cushion here, that you got to go all out?
Right. There's no doubt about that. And we knew that when we started the season, our goal was to host a conference tournament because we felt like if we could host a conference tournament, we would have a great chance of winning it. And that's not a guarantee, just because you host doesn't mean you're going to win. And so by any means, but that was our goal, as I'm sure it was everybody in the ASC East. But, we have a chance at it now. But we feel, as probably everyone in the ASC does, is you have to win the conference tournament to get into the NCAAs. Now, we believe us and Hardin Simmons, and I'm sure Tyler, if they keep things going, and even Concordia is right there also. I don't know where we'll all be stacked regionally ranked when it's all said and done, but I think all 4 teams, are right on that cusp, and all 4 teams could get in. But we know that we might be a 1-team league. So it's going to be that conference tournament, even though we don't feel we should be a 1-team league across the league, but we beat up on each other. But I think that conference tournament, no matter where it's played, is going to be highly contested every game and a lot of fun. So we're going to have to be mentally tough and ready.
When obviously you just played East Texas Baptist and Louisiana College this weekend. You beat East Texas Baptist by 4. You beat Louisiana College by 20. You'll flip that almost UAA style and play Louisiana College coming up this weekend along with East Texas Baptist. That's how you'll finish it off. Before then playing 3 more, Belhaven, and then by itself on a weekend, then Texas, Dallas, and University of Ozarks to finish it all off. What's the message? I mean, obviously you kind of indicated we want to be in position. You kind of have an advantage. You have a 1-game lead on Texas Tyler and the 2-0 win against them in conference. So you technically have the tiebreaker should you slip. But what's the message to the team more than we want to be home for the East? What is there a driving force or a goal in mind outside of just hosting?
Right. There really is. It's a little cliche, but, we always say the most important game is the next one. So, we don't want to look ahead by any stretch, and even our next game, we have to travel to Louisiana College. They play very good at home. And you know how it is when you're in conference play, you can kind of throw those records out. Anything can happen because both teams know each other so well. We just got done playing each other. So, I'm sure Coach will have some wrinkles there for us when we travel there. And then we got to turn around and go to East Texas Baptist, which is over the last several years since I've been here. This is my 3rd year. I feel is the hardest place to play in the ASC. Last year they went 20-5. The year before that they went to the national tournament, and they've won the ASC East the last 2 years. So, we need to be really strong this week. We're going to talk about being road warriors because we want a 2-0 week. We really think that's important to close this thing strong. And if we can get to 21 wins, and we're not looking ahead by any stretch, but we know, we might have a chance. We might have a chance with the regional rankings, but we'll bring it back tomorrow, bring all that back, and just have a great practice in preparation for our road trip to Louisiana on Thursday, though.
Dan Miller, LeTourneau University men's basketball coach. I feel like you're a little bit conflicted because you grew up in Wisconsin, went to school in Minnesota, and you've been back and forth between Minnesota and Texas in your coaching history. I feel like you're in Texas a while and go, yeah, I really want a blizzard. And then you go to Minnesota, you go, no, I'd really like the sun and the warmth. And you go, what is up with the back and forth? It's the craziest thing to read in the bio. You really have to read it word for word to understand what you've been up to.
Right. Sometimes my wife and I wonder, what have we been up to? There's no doubt. We get back up there, we come right back to the south. Yeah. And I think this will be as north as I'll be. So, right here, Longview is north part of East Texas. Yeah. But, I was down here in Texas as an assistant high school coach and had the chance to go up to Southwest Minnesota State and work under Coach Steeman. And work with one of my good friends, Brad Bigler, and who's now the head coach there. So we were assistant coaches there and had a good experience there. But there's a school opening up in Katy, Texas, that I kind of had my eye on to be a head coach, and I was able to move down here to Texas and be the head coach at Seven Lakes High School, which is now that Texas went to 6A is 6A high school, one of the biggest high schools in Texas, and I really enjoyed that experience, for 9 years, starting a program from scratch. We started with freshmen and sophomores. I actually coached 3 of the guys on our roster. I coached them in high school. I coached Jeff Martin, Alec Kohlhoff, and Eric Roberson. So there's not many, I think, college coaches who get, had coached their kids in high school. So, I joke with Jeff and Alec. I said, you'll finally be rid of me, in another year, after coaching them, for 7-8 years. So it's been really neat. And, I love Seven Lakes. We had, I think one of the best high school basketball programs for sure in Houston, and we're building something across the state. And they're still great. My good friend, Coach Heston, took over and is doing a wonderful job there and keeping them strong. So, I was just getting, ready to turn 40, and I just felt a new chapter in my life. So I'm thankful that Terry Dykey took a chance and hired me as the head coach here. And, I've really enjoyed this. It was a challenge, it was definitely a challenge, to turn this program around. And we feel like we still have a long ways to go to where we want to be. But I've enjoyed the challenge, and it's been fun to see where we were 3 years ago and where we are now, and kind of the culture change just within the basketball program. It's a compliment to the guys, and we're just going to try to keep it rolling.
I think I figured it out. Minnesota, the land of Thousand Lakes, and then you went to Seven Lakes High School.
Yeah, there you go.
So I'm thinking that was part of it. The other thing is you just got a head start on the retirement thing. Everybody who likes to live up in the north during the summer and live down the south during the winter, you just did a hybrid of that. Coach, thanks so much for taking the time to join us. Really impressive. I mean, it could end up being a 15-game turnaround in the span of 2 seasons, which is not saying anything lightly. That is tough to do in any conference, in anywhere. So congratulations, especially as big as the ASC.
Yeah.
Congratulations on that. Obviously, good luck the rest of the way. We look forward to seeing if you guys can pull it off and stay at home for the tournament, and then see if we can see you dancing in March. As always, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuning in?
Well, I just want to thank you, Dave. You know, we really appreciate you giving us some attention, LeTourneau basketball, and we were really excited. I love the job you do with your show. You know, we watch it, we check it out. I just think it's a great platform for D3 hoops, which you know and I know is some great basketball across the country. So we're thankful, and stay tuned. There are a lot of exciting things ahead for LeTourneau men's basketball.
I have a feeling you are right. We will stay tuned. Thanks so much for the kind words, and we will look forward to talking more about the Yellow Jackets down the road. Take care.
For sure. Take care.
Dan Miller joining us once again from LeTourneau. The team, again, could have 15 wins by the time this is done. They're at 16 wins, I should say. Could have a 15-game turnaround up near 20 wins by the time they even hit the ASC tournament. Whether they make March, well, it's to be determined. They've already had a heck of a season, and we look forward to seeing how it finishes. When we come back, well, we'll jump north, too. We'll head out to New Jersey, talk women's basketball with the top team in the NJAC, or are they? It's a crazy NJAC this season. Karen Harvey from Montclair State joins us. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA and ABC studios. More Hoopsville after this.
Great moments are born from great opportunity. That's what you have here tonight. That's what you've earned here tonight. This is your time. Now go out there and take it.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and I know how powerful words can be. The term gay doesn't mean stupid, lame, or less than.
So I pledge to speak up if I hear the term gay used in a derogatory way or any other homophobic terms.
If you can play in Division III.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and my teammates unconditionally accepted me as part of their family. So now I pledge to do the same for others. If you can play in Division III.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you are enjoying this Sunday show. We're obviously going to be heading into overtime. We still got one more segment with a guest, and then we've got our mailbag segment, our final segment, which will have the mailbag. We'll quickly go through what happened in the top 25, talk about the fundraiser and the upcoming marathon. That's all still ahead, so we'll probably get off 2.5 hours in the show. So we'll try and keep this quick and get going. If you got questions for us at any time, especially for our Hoopsville mailbag, which is rather full this week. We went from no emails to a lot. We got a full mailbag. Email us, hoopsville at d3hoops.com. That's great for all you podcasters as well who are listening to the show when we're not live. We can answer your questions down the road. Also, you can interact with us on Twitter at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville, on Instagram, where we mainly promote the show, but also when we travel, you'll see what we're up to at D3Hoopsville and hashtag Hoopsville there as well. And, of course, Facebook, where we are, Facebook live broadcasting the simulcast of this show, Hoopsville, facebook.com/Hoopsville is where you go. I'm going to go back to women's basketball now and jump into New Jersey in the NJAC race, one that we pretty much haven't paid enough attention to on the show. We've been paying attention to it. I just don't think we did a good enough job to get guests on. There's a lot of reasons as to how or ways that we book guests, but I left this one to way too late in the season. So we're going to do it right and go right to the top of the conference. Not surprisingly, Montclair State is leading the way. I think more surprisingly might be that I thought they might have a tougher season than apparently they're having. 18-1 overall, 11-1 in conference. But what's really interesting is that this week ahead gets really, really interesting. So let's go to the city of Salem's Hoopsville hotline, and joining us there is Karen Harvey, the head coach of the 18th ranked Redhawks. Coach, welcome to Hoopsville.
Hey, Dave. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely appreciate you taking the time, as always. Always love chatting with you. You've been on my mind all season because for some reason or another, somebody I know is either playing you or the NJAC is afire or something along those lines, or there's some game with some team on the East Coast, and for whatever reason, you're my barometer. And it started with Haverford at the top of the season when we talked to the chair this year, Haverford's head coach, Bobby Morgan. She said she was starting the season with you guys. Did you not get the memo? You're supposed to let the chair's team win, Karen? You beat them 56-43. Didn't Bobby send you the note?
Bobby's a good pal of mine.
Yeah. Well, you started a 2-game slide for her in 3 of the first 4. I thought we were done.
Hey, we were just getting her ready. Look at her now.
Yeah, I know. Looking at
She's
her
doing great.
now. You're right. They're on a tear, and we'll certainly be talking to Coach Morgan down the road. Of course, you went on a tear yourself. You beat Haverford. You beat Williams. Beat Hamilton up at Williams. Then you beat Kane, and that game is we'll talk more about because that is key right now. Beat Stevens while they were struggling out of the gate, and they're a good team, just underappreciated. You really had a good start to this. Then you went to Las Vegas to the wrong tournament. You went to some tournament that's not held at the South Point Arena, where you beat St. Mary's of Indiana and Regis of Mass. And Regis is usually a pretty good team, but you beat them 70-28. Talk about not seeing that one coming. The only blemish on this is TCNJ. And when's the last time you guys scored 40?
Yeah, we struggled. TCNJ is a good basketball team, and Dawn Henderson is a great coach. And she puts a good zone together, and I think we shot 12% from the three-point line. But I give the credit to TCNJ. We did not shoot the ball very well at all. And, we were coming back from break a little out of sync. I think we got ahead of ourselves a little bit. So, maybe that did us a little bit of good, got us back straightened around, ready to go.
Well, you did have an interesting comeback from break. The last games you played were in Vegas on December 21st. Then you came back on the 2nd and beat Cortland and beat New Jersey City. Then you got a postponement of your game at Stockton. So you kind of had this weird break in there of a week before playing Rutgers, Camden, and TCNJ. And you can tell from those 2 games that you guys were a little bit off.
Yes, agreed.
So TCNJ trips you up. And again, I don't remember the last time you only scored 40 points. But then you kind of got back on the horse and beat Kane again. And the reason I bring that up is Kane, I think, is a surprise right now in the conference. They're 13-6 overall. They're 10-2 in conference. The only 2 losses to you guys. Those 2 games are huge right now.
Yes, huge. Yeah, that's a big tiebreaker to be holding in our pocket if we need it. Yep. We played really well against them. I'm very proud of my team. We really. I think we had a great first semester. We had a really great first semester. We were playing well. Everything was clicking, almost to the point, Dave, where you don't want to go on break.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And then we went on break, and we got a little out of sync from that, and then we had that long delay, like you said. And, we'll learn from that, I think, and we're back on track a little bit now. So
your season's also pretty balanced. You played 11 games before that break. So leaving basically 13, 14 games post-break before the tournament. So a very balanced. A lot of teams sometimes are light in the front end and have a ton of games in the back end. But that Stockton game has been looming. You have got a heck of a week coming up.
I know.
It's not on the D3 Hoops schedule. I got to go at it. That's me. But you will go to Stockton tomorrow and play the makeup game. Then on Wednesday, you're at William Patterson. And on Saturday, it's the return engagement against Stockton at your place. It's almost like you 2 coaches waited to the last possible moment to sneak this game in.
I'm not gonna lie, Dave. That's not the 2 of us.
Oh, really? Out of your control?
No, out of my control. January 30th is our designated snow makeup date.
Okay.
And we tried to play that game every Monday except for that one. So I did not want to play Stockton twice in 1 week. I'm not going to lie. But
I don't blame you. I don't blame you.
I think that's tough for both programs.
But let me ask you this. Is it better to play them first on the road so that the return engagement is at home?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. So at least maybe it's in your favor in your mind. Obviously, that's big. You've got 6 games to go with that Stockton game coming up on Monday, then William Patterson, Stockton, New Jersey City, the return engagement against TCNJ and Rutgers, Camden. You're 18-1. We're very accustomed that the Red Hawks kind of roll through the NJAC, but the NJAC's been a little bit tougher this year.
Absolutely. I think the whole conference is up. I mean, if you look at, we're trying to stay above the spray a little bit there.
Yeah.
If you look at it, everybody is beating everybody.
Yeah.
There is not an easy game. I mean, we barely got by Rutgers Camden, and TC&J got us. We had, we've had some tough. It's tough. We could lose to anyone. I mean, everyone's like, oh, we have 6 games left, but it could go. There's a lot of movement that could still happen.
Yeah,
So
6 teams with 12 wins or more. You've only got a 5-game lead on Rutgers Camden, and I mean only because who knows what happens in the next 6. Nobody's eliminated from first place technically. Yeah, you're technically above the fray. Kane, as obviously with the tiebreaker, is further than a game back in reality, but Stockton is good. William Patterson is good this year. It's almost like the men's side has moved into the women's now.
Yeah, the women's programs are doing a great job. It's a really tough this year. We were looking. I was doing a little early national committee look at the region.
Good.
And we're kind of beating each other up, and I hope that doesn't hurt us down the road because we've been fortunate to get 2 and 3 teams in, but we got teams with a lot of losses right now, 6 and 7 losses that are really good basketball teams.
Yeah, and we should mention Karen Harvey, if you don't know, is the Atlantic chair and on the national committee. Second year for you this year?
Yes, it's my second year. Yeah.
And so obviously she's looking at that stuff ahead of time. But yeah, I mean, you do have the risk of what's gone on with the men for the last few years. They can't get that extra team in because of those extra losses, that extra beating up, as it were. What has changed in the conference? Because it used to be you guys or somebody else would dominate and everybody else was just kind of playing basketball.
Well, I think we got some great coaches. We got some great new coaches that came into the league, and we got some coaches doing a good job. Recruiting is up. People are out there working hard. I think the schools in the NJAC are getting better and better, just academic institution-wise.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're drawing a lot of students. We're a really affordable conference. You can get a great education for, you don't have to mortgage your house necessarily. So, I think we're attracting a lot of really good student athletes. And I think, coaches are out there working hard, and you're seeing it on the women's side, in basketball.
We'll talk about your team in a moment, but a quick question about Kane. Obviously, they're kind of the bellwether, as it were, when it comes to not playing by the rules. And obviously got dinged really hard by the NCAA a few years ago for their women's basketball program and some other issues that took place. And they took a back seat. I mean, they went from 22-6 to 5-18 in one season and kind of were sitting back there for a while. They did have a good year at 18-12, but they haven't been a major threat. What's your reaction to see them back at the top and in the fray again?
Well, I think Mandy's done a great job over there. She's done a great job recruiting. She's got, I'm sure you're well aware of the sophomore that they have over there. That kid is unreal. She's one of the best basketball players in Division III, no question. I mean, her pull-up jumper is unbelievable. And, she's got some other pieces that she's doing a good job with. So, and their style of play is tough for a lot of teams. They're quick and athletic, and they play fast, and, so, they've got a lot of good pieces there.
You guys are outscoring your opponents by 17.5 points a game, and you've got one loss. It's to TC&J. As good as the NJAC has been, as good as Kane has become, and I mean this seriously, how do you only have one loss?
I'm going to say rebounding.
Okay. Good. I love that answer.
I'm going to be honest, David. We have been working for 3 years to try to get our team to be a better rebounding team. I went a little nuts like 4 years ago trying to figure out how we could become an NCAA team. And all of the number crunching and research I did pointed to rebounding. So we've really been trying, and this is the first year it's really clicked, and my kids are bought in, and we are, we're rebounding the basketball really well. And some games we're out-rebounding teams by 20, 10, 20. It's good numbers, and it gives us a lot of extra possessions, and it's, it's really helping us. It's going to be interesting because, we're going to have to do that against Monday. Will be a really good test for us because Stockton is out rebounding their opponents by about the same margin. So it'll be a good test for us. But I really think that's a big piece of it. You're
out rebounding your opponents by 7 on average. But if you look at the defensive rebounds, now granted, defense to defensive rebounds is not comparable. But just to give an idea, it's almost an 80 rebound difference. And your offensive rebounds, you're getting almost 60 more than your opponent. Obviously, extra chance points, shutting down extra chance points. I can see how that's important. Your leading rebounder is Katie Sire at 8 rebounds a game. You've got 4 others at 4 plus, almost 5 rebounds a game. So that's 5 or 6 players who are getting significant boards. Clearly, that's a change in mentality, and obviously, they're attacking those boards.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we talk about it, drill on it. You know, it's a big part of what we're trying to do.
Let's talk about this team. I'm kind of used to you at this point having some turnover. You have 3 seniors on this year's squad. Coming off of last season where maybe it wasn't as good as we're used to, 22-7. It still was good, don't get me wrong. But, it was interesting. Did that kind of maybe burn a little fire under this squad you got to what you lost in the second round to Albright, and that was obviously a very good Albright team.
Very good.
Was that, interesting enough, the second straight MAC Commonwealth team you faced in the second round too? Was that kind of maybe a little bit of a fire under this team coming into this season?
I think so. We were kind of young last year. I mean, we had 1 senior. We lost her to an ACL. So we played the whole season with no seniors, and I think that I think finishing where we did wasn't enough for them, wasn't good enough for them, and we still had a great year. I mean, we won our conference. We went to NCAA. Yes, we lost to a very, very good Albright team in overtime, but I think they want their season to go longer. And I'm telling you, I have never had a group come back more improved than this year's group. I think they put the time in, you know what I mean? They didn't just talk about getting better. Like, they went out, they worked. Some of them worked. Even if, let's say, 14th man on my team did 2 workouts a day, 6 days a week for the entire summer. I mean, these kids really worked hard, and they came in first semester and with skills that they did not have in May.
That's pretty impressive, and again, it shows on the stats. Sire 15 points a game. Toby and Kraus 9 points each, 8.5 from Curtis. But what's more impressive is you have a lot of players who are either shooting incredibly well. Sire and Toby are above 46 or about 46%. They shoot free throws well. They shoot 3 points well. Almost everybody you see on the top 5 does everything well. That makes it tough to defend you guys.
Yeah, and I think that's the other thing that we're doing really well. We're very balanced, at least as far as our first 5 go. It could be anybody, any night, and when one person is off, obviously, Rachel's an incredible 3-point shooter, but when she's off, Zoe's knocking down threes, and we're starting to get our inside game going a little bit. We've been working hard on that all season, and it's really starting to click. I have, Sage has always done a great job for us. It might not be huge numbers, but, the way she defends or the way she rebounds or just keeps someone else off the boards, she's really scoring around the rim now. We have Yasmin Lacey, who's a junior who worked her tail off this summer and came back an entirely different player. I just said to her the other day, hey, we still have 4 more weeks of you getting better before we get into playoff season. And she is a beast around the rim. So I'm excited to see her get involved offensively. And if you just look at Kate Toby's numbers, it's incredible what she's doing this year. Just, she's always been a great defender and a great point guard and a great distributor. But now she's scoring the basketball. She's getting to the rim. She's knocking down the 3. She's playing with so much confidence. And she's getting, people involved that haven't been involved on the offense. So I like what we're doing.
Yeah, Toby's numbers for anybody out there: shooting 46% from the floor, 35% from beyond the arc, 75% from the free throw line, pulling in 3 rebounds, handing out 5+ assists. Second on the team in steals. The leader in steals is Katie Sire. So whatever Toby's not doing, Sire's doing, and whatever Sire's not doing, Toby's doing. And of course, you got the rest of the team handing in as well. So here's maybe a trick question: what are you doing? What aren't you doing well?
What aren't we doing well?
Wow. Think about it. Take your time. We can be here all night if you need.
I'm sure there's lots of areas that we still need to improve on. We've typically been a big pressing team. I think for the 3 years prior, and people have kind of scattered our press pretty well, and we maybe can't press as much as we would like to right now. So, I would say we could do a little bit better job with our press or adjusting our press, but I also think in some ways it's making us a better team because we've figured out a way, because we want to play fast, and our press is what has allowed us to do that. And so when people take away our press, then we kind of struggled a little bit. But now we're starting to figure out a way to pick up the pace of the game without pressing, which is it's pretty fun and, pretty good compliment to my team that they can figure that out,
By the way, we have a viewer of the show who's a big fan and a big recruiter in the area for a lot of schools, he or at least for himself, and helps schools. He's a big Scranton fan, and he says he can't wait to meet up with you guys in the NCAA. My question is, when are we going to get you guys in Scranton to play a regular season game?
We have tried for the last few years to get Scranton on our schedule, or they've tried to get us, and we can't seem to find a date. And the problem is the NJAC. We play 18 conference games, and our first conference game starts the Tuesday before Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So we don't have a lot of time. So we would have to play them in a tournament, or we would have to open the season with them. And I'm not sure either one of us really want to do that.
I've got a great idea.
Okay.
South Point Arena, Las Vegas, between Christmas and that's what I'm saying, Christmas and New Year's. Forget the other tournament, Coach. Come to the D3Hoops.com Classic.
Dave, just so you're not offended, we only went because of the date.
Whatever, Coach.
We wanted to go before Christmas.
I understand. Trust me. I know how complicated these tournaments are. I love having fun with you. So obviously you're on the national committee, so this kind of gives me a perfect opportunity to change in a different direction. You guys are certainly going to be on the top of the conversation when it comes to your region in general, and certainly one of the top teams in the country. 546 SOS from our math looks pretty solid, obviously. But what's the rest of this region look like to you? It seems to me like a hodgepodge.
Yes, I would agree with you. I think it's tough. Like, I looked at it, and I actually called one of my other national committee members today just to ask her a couple of thoughts on what she thought about our region. It's going to be tough because, like I said, we have a lot of teams with 5 and 6 and 7 losses already who have really high strength of schedule. Yeah. So, we're going to have to see how it plays out. We're going to have to see how the national committee as a whole feels about it. We're obviously my rack. I got a really good rack. They do a good job. We have our mock ranking this week, as you know.
Yes.
So we'll do the mock ranking, and then we'll work out any kinks. But I think it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out.
Do you feel any pressure now that you're 18-1 at this point in the season that you have to keep winning, especially how you see the national landscape out there? Is there pressure to know that you've got to just keep winning, or do you feel maybe the pressure's off because you are in such great a position right now?
No, I said to my assistant the other day, like maybe yesterday, I wish I didn't know everything I knew. Sometimes I would like to dial back the clock and not have any idea what I need to do. But no, it's pressure. Yeah, we feel pressure.
So the national committee and regional committee opportunities for you have been both a blessing because you get to understand the situation, and a curse because you better understand the situation.
Yeah, I didn't sleep much before, Dave. Now I just never sleep. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you there. When obviously time's coming up to when we will start these regional rankings and all of that stuff, and now that we'll get to see the rankings at the end of the season and whatnot. Obviously, you're not chair, but I'm just curious from your vantage point as things really start to ramp up for you guys. What do you hope the committee accomplishes this season?
Well, I thought we did a great job. I mean, I thought we did a great job as national committee last year. Just getting the best 64 teams in. That's the goal. The goal is to get the best 64 teams in, and I thought we did it. And then balance the playing field as much as we can within the guidelines that the NCAA gives us, as far as who gets to host and where teams are sent and that kind of thing. And put together the fairest bracket that we can, with the best 64 teams, and I think that we have a great committee that are really committed and work hours and hours and hours. I can't tell you how many hours people put in on this. So, we do our best, and I think that we'll do the same this year. One of the other things we're obviously, working on it with the NCAA is the perhaps another joint championship, which we would love to try to do down the road, as something that maybe could happen every few years or something like that. But, I think that's one of our little side goals that we keep, pushing forward and trying to work with the NCAA and maybe the WBCA on a little bit.
Per that championship, obviously you got a chance to see you in Indianapolis. From your vantage point, what was that experience like?
Oh, it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, it was the greatest thing I've ever been a part of. Like, it was such a cool experience just to be on the national committee. I can't imagine what it was like to play in it. And I'll tell you, to be honest, like that experience meant so much to me. We got one of those basketballs that has the Division I, Division II, Division III logos on it.
Nice.
That was from the national championship, and that's the basketball that we're using as our game ball this year.
Really?
Yeah.
You would scrub that thing up?
Yeah, I took it. It was a gift.
Wow.
Yeah,
I'm just
I
impressed
scrubbed
you're
it up.
using it and not throwing it in a nice mantle location.
Oh, no, that's our lucky basketball. Are you kidding?
Apparently.
That's our game ball. Yeah.
The problem is you can't use it in the tournament.
No, I can't use it in the tournament. We can use it leading right up to it.
Hey, listen, when you're done, send it to the studio. We'd love to put it in here. No, I'm not taking your prize away. That's awesome. I'm totally kidding with you. No, it was a great experience. It was fun to do, and I agree. I kind of like the idea of doing it again. I heard a great idea of maybe doing it every 5 years.
Yeah.
I think that might be a nice hybrid to help it get another chance, but at the same time, not screw up the tournament schedule as much as it does.
Right, exactly.
Well, Coach, I really appreciate you taking the time. I know you want to get to bed because you have so much sleep to catch up on with this season, and obviously with Stockton ahead, you don't need to study. I think you're fine. Tomorrow's game and Saturday, I think you're good.
At least I don't have to do the scouts twice, right?
That's true.
That's the only good
Well,
thing.
unless it really goes sideways, you might have to
Unless
go
it goes sideways,
check
right.
the other scout out again. As always, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those tuning in?
I just want to say thanks for having me, and thanks for giving Montclair State a shout out. We're really proud of what we have at our institution, and really proud of our student athletes and how hard they work, and what great representatives of Division III women's basketball they are. So thanks for everything that you do there, and we really appreciate all the support.
Well, thank you, Coach. Great to have you on as always. I'm sure you and I will talk at some point down the road here in this season. Good luck the rest of the way. We're looking forward to this week, but also looking forward to seeing how the NJAC turns out in the end, and have fun at least.
Yeah, we're definitely having fun. Don't worry.
Awesome. Coach, take care. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks a lot, Dave.
See ya. Coach Karen Harvey joining us on the City of Salem Hoopsville hotline. The team is 18-1, and I'm serious when I say the NJAC is so improved that to know that they're 11-1 in conference is pretty darn impressive. They've got the game lead on Kane, but as you know, with 2 wins, they basically have a 2-game lead on Kane because they can be tied and they will have the tiebreaker. Again, Monday against Stockton at Stockton, then Wednesday at William Patterson, Saturday back home against Stockton. Then they finish out at New Jersey City, at home against New Jersey TCNJ, who their lone loss so far, and then at Rutgers Camden. That will be how the season ends. We're going to keep going here and wrap up this show without taking a commercial break. So if Coach happens to be on the line and holding, Coach, I'm not going to be able to get to you. I apologize. Sometimes the coaches hold on just to say hello at the end, and I don't want her to keep holding. So let's get to a couple other things as we move along. If you do have any questions for us when we're on our podcast or for our Hoopsville mailbag segment, you can always email us, hoopsville@d3hoops.com. Interact with us on Instagram @d3hoopsville and #Hoopsville. A couple of things here. Well, it's going to go through the mailbag, a bunch of quick-hitting questions, a couple others that hopefully we can keep tight. We'll answer those questions. I told you I would go through the top 25, so we will go through that and my quick thoughts. And then I'll go back to the FDU story about Mark Mitchell, their head coach, and what I have learned, but also there's more on the way. I won't give you everything. But let's start with the Hoopsville mailbag. We actually have 6 questions. Some of these are quick hitters, so we'll get to them. Let's start with the first one. John in Syracuse says, great interview with Coach Flakertzy. I think he just wanted me to say that name again, from Rochester last week. Follow up about the UAA and other conferences that may be in the same situation. How much does it hurt conferences who don't have postseason tournaments when it comes to selection time? Are there any pros for not having a postseason tournament? Well, let's first start and say there's nobody else in the entire NCAA who's in the same situation as the UAA. They're the only ones who do not have a conference tournament. So let's start with the first question. How much does it hurt conferences who don't have postseason tournaments when it comes to selection time? You could make the argument that it hurts them because there isn't an extra 1, 2, maybe even 3 games added to the resume. If you were to get as far as 3, and in some conferences you do, like the ODAC, you then at least have 2 more wins. So take Rochester last year, who finished 17-8 on the season. That finished with a 680 winning percentage with a pretty good SOS. The problem with that winning percentage is nobody, since the SOS was installed, I believe, in Division III men's basketball, has gotten in to the tournament with a less than 667 winning percentage. So the 680 is right on the door. So let's say they played 2 more games and went 1 for 1. That would make them 18-9. That would put them, I'm doing the wrong math here. I still did the wrong math. I apologize. If they went 1-1, they might be in a little bit more trouble. The advantage is they may have gotten a win over another regionally ranked opponent. That adds to that number. Their loss would have been to another regionally ranked opponent, most likely. That would have helped with that number. The SOS would have been boosted, etc. If for some reason they got all 8 teams in the UAA and they played a quarterfinal, semifinal, and championship, and let's just say Rochester went 2-1 in that situation, so they're now 19 out of the 28 games. They now have about the same winning percentage, but again, 2 more wins, 1 at least probably against a regionally ranked opponent, 1 more certainly a loss, but again against a regionally ranked opponent. I think it helps them. That's an argument for how it helps them. You could make the argument that it hurts them there. You notice that winning percentage doesn't take a necessary jump increase. The extra loss could hurt them if they don't have another win. If they only play 2 games, the extra loss and win actually don't help them at all. Let's see, they were 17-8, so now they're 18-9. So 18, I didn't do it right. Hold on a second. 18 divided by 27 is 667, puts them on the Mendoza line. So going 1-1 more would have maybe hurt them. So it's risky. And that's where other conferences who have tournaments play a little bit of a roulette game. And that's where the other part of this question there. Are there pros for not having a postseason tournament? The pros are, and this is where it gets interesting. The pros are that technically the teams that might be in bubble situation or in the most tenuous shape don't take another loss. So they don't hurt themselves any further. They may gain a win, may gain 2 wins, but they don't pick up that loss, so their resume holds. The second thing, and this one's the most interesting, and I think it's something I think the committees ought to consider. I had a great suggestion presented to me that the SOS ought to stop being calculated at the end of the regular season, but before the conference tournaments start. Here's the reasoning. If you think about this, in most conference tournaments, the top seeds are hurt by the tournament because they play lower seeded teams, most likely with worse records, and in cases of conferences who have 8 teams, it may be a sub 500 record. The SOS is going to go in reverse on them. So a program who's dominating their conference and has to play a team who's horrible in the first round is going to take an SOS hit. Then they're potentially going to take that SOS hit the second time as well, as the one team will either play at best the 4 or at worst the 5, maybe a 6, maybe a 7 at some point, depending on how the tournament plays out. They're taking an SOS hit. And that hurts now teams, and it hurts conferences. So the idea that they don't take an SOS hit, they don't take extra losses, arguably could help you out. So the tournaments can work both ways depending on the situation. The tournament can be very beneficial for teams who are on the bubble who need an extra couple of wins to help boost them. They most likely, at some point, one of those teams is probably not a top seed, so they're going to play some teams that will boost their SOS. Whereas the top teams are going to lose ground in their SOS because they're playing the bottom-ranked teams, and potentially, if they're a bubble team, could take a loss they could not afford. Let's give you the example. Lancaster Bible last year ended the season undefeated. They're in the NCAA tournament. They would have gotten the AQ as the conference's best team. If by playing the tournament, they risked taking a loss, which would have kicked them out of the tournament. Now, I made an argument then that shouldn't have happened. That's irrelevant to the fact. Yes, they could have taken a loss during the regular season and missed out on the tournament as well, but that's the regular season. The postseason tournament would have hurt them. I am for postseason tournaments because I think they're exciting. I think it gives teams who may not have had the best finish or the best middle of the season a final chance to make a difference. And I think for most conferences, it actually sometimes bolsters those lower bubble teams with better resumes, increase in the SOS most likely, certainly an extra couple of wins possibly as well. But there are ways that it can hurt, and I think the UAA has seen that in Rochester and some other occasions when teams have been left out. It's a slippery slope. There's only one conference in the country who doesn't have it, so there you go. Next question. I'm a fan of SUNY Canton, but I know the life of an independent school can be difficult in Division III. What do the Roos or other independents have to do to try and make the postseason? This is Rachel in Potsdam. First and foremost, that's almost impossible. There used to be a time for a number of years we had the Pool B bid, which basically was a chance. After the automatic qualifiers, the first ones to be selected for at-large were going to independents, those in conferences that didn't have the NAQ or those who were not in conferences. Their numbers were great enough that they could then get a pick first. They were the first at-large picks before we got to everybody else. We don't have enough independents. There aren't enough. You need 9 to get a bid. And as a result, the independents are out on their own. There isn't a conference in Division III basketball right now who doesn't have an automatic bid. So all of these, there's no bulk of teams who are in a conference with no bid, automatic bid, and thus you're left with independents like Canton, like Alfred, and some others. Santa Cruz, for example, out in California. The best they can do is go out and schedule a very good schedule that gives them a very good SOS and do well against that schedule. That is far trickier than you can assume. Canton's SOS is a 519. Not bad, actually, considering their circumstance. The problem is they are 12-8 against it, and their record in Division III is 8-7. Pretty much no go. No chance they're going to get in. What they have to do, Canton, is schedule better than the 519, believe it or not. They have to schedule more Division IIIs, extremely challenging, especially this time of year when everybody is tied up with conferences. My suggestion with Canton is contact the NESCAC. Notice that Tufts is playing 2 non-conference opponents in the next 2 weeks. Canton's got to find a way to find some of these guys to fit in. And then they got to win. 12-8, 8-7. 12-8 overall, 8-7 overall. They can't do that. They need to go win. So it's really tricky for the independents. It's almost unfair. I can certainly appreciate that. The only other thing is create a conference or get into a conference. I can tell you now, getting into a conference is almost impossible. The NEAC a year ago said no to them, and I think it's Alfred State. I always get the two confused. Alfred State, I believe, said no to both of them, and then the NEAC put themselves on a freeze for 2 years of expansion. There are enough movements going on that it could be interesting. We do know from Canton, from an earlier interview on Hoopsville, that they are looking at doing something, but that's the easiest. To be honest with you, the easiest way is find a way to make a conference and get in. You just need those 7 schools and then wait 2 years. That's going to be tough. They're going to have to pillage from some other conferences. And maybe that's possible, but that's really tough for an independent. It says Rachel from Potsdam. That's not correct. I apparently didn't grab the graphic correctly here. Let me double check who this question is actually from. Bear with me. This is from Stace. Nope. David in Virginia Beach. I believe, right? Yes, this is David in Virginia Beach. Forgive the graphic. How good is CNU's women's team this year? They are my dark horse to win it all, his, that is. I don't see anyone in the CAC stopping the captains. Of course, the NCAA tournament time all depends on matchups, but I think CNU has what it takes to get to the Final Four. Agree, or am I crazy? Interesting that we're talking about the women's team here, who I think is sneaky darn good. They're in the top 5, I believe. They just, and thanks to the win over Mary Washington last week, 75-67, they then went and beat Salisbury by 3, 61-58 this past week. They've got Mary Washington ahead. They've still got to play Marymount. They even have York ahead of them in the next 6. So I don't think CNU's done here. I don't necessarily think they go undefeated. I think Mary Washington absolutely has the capabilities of winning, especially considering that game's on the road. Marymount might be able to do something. Granted, Marymount's not having. Marymount's 15-4 and 9-3 in the conference. So, and remember, Mary Washington's 18-1 and 11-1. So I think either of those two teams can win, especially when you have to play at Mary Washington. And then York's looming. The very last game of the season at York. York is 14-5. 8-4 in the conference. The last time those two teams faced was December 11th. It was at home for Christopher Newport, and York lost by 12. Any one of those three, I think, can trip up CNU. Absolutely right that the tournament then depends on how this is going to happen for Christopher Newport. I think being where they are in the South, and the fact that they'll have a more southerly direction, I would assume. Depends on who comes out of the ODAC and some other schools as to how this tournament is going to be broken down. Christopher Newport could also end up heading up north if they have to go through Montclair State. I think we got an interesting battle. If they get into the Mid-Atlantic grouping a little bit too much, and the problem is Christopher Newport is so far east that getting him to the Great Lakes is almost impossible. You might remember Christopher Newport was the wild card in the year that Thomas More we all thought was going to host the second weekend, and it got shipped to the Great Northwest. I want to say George Fox hosted that one. The reason that happened was Christopher Newport won their second round game, meaning everybody to get to Thomas More was over 500 miles, including Christopher Newport. So they shipped everybody to the George Fox, which I thought was the right decision. So getting Christopher Newport to the Great Lakes is tough. So they're either going to have enough teams in the South area, ODAC and elsewhere, to keep Christopher Newport down there, but at some point they're going to have to move, and that means moving him in the Mid-Atlantic. So does that mean, they're going to have to face Scranton, another CAC foe potentially, Centennial foes. You've got the rest of the landmark, including Catholic, or you're into the Atlantic and you're now dealing with Montclair. You move into the East. Christopher Newport's going to have a tough road no matter what they've got. Now, Scranton lost their second in 3 games, so maybe they're a little bit more susceptible, but Catholic's good. Scranton's good. We talked just now about the CAC, Marymount, Mary Washington, and York. Salisbury's lurking. I don't think they make the tournament, so that may not be relevant. I don't think CNU's got a dominating way to get to the Final Four. It would certainly be interesting if they did, but I'm not betting on it. I think the road's going to be too tough. That said, they're good. They're tricky. The article written around the nation I thought was terrific about them. But their next game is Mary Washington this week at Mary Washington on Wednesday. They then travel to St. Mary's on Saturday. Then a week and a half, they're at home against Marymount, at home against Wesley the following Saturday. Their final game of the regular season is against York. They've got an up and down schedule here. This is going to be tough. Let's just get through the season. I don't think they get through undefeated. I think at least one, if not 2 of these games are losses, believe it or not. And that will also change how that bracket turns out. And the CAC championship is going to be outstanding, the tournament. Next question. Ramapo for real? Are the Roadrunners a top 10 team? Richard in Tennessee. Ironically, Richard, I actually had this conversation. Whoops. As I go to the wrong question here, we'll get to that next question in a bit. I actually had this question with some people, or conversation with some people the other day. I do think they're a top 10 team. I saw them in Las Vegas, and here's the deal. We've been out there for 7 D3Hoops.com's classics, and Ramapo's been there for 6. Ramapo has come into that tournament a top 25 team in the past. They actually lost to Stevens Point that year when they were there. I think that was the year Stevens Point might have gone on to the national championship, but I might have my years wrong. My point being, I'd never been blown away by Ramapo. They're always good. They're always feisty. They always have some great talent. They always got some incredible speed, et cetera, and they're always in your face defense. The year they were ranked, they were good, but this year I thought they were better, and they came in unranked. More weapons, more on the same page with each other. I almost dare say that less transfers at midseason. Ramapo's famous for having transfers. Mostly NJAC's famous for having transfers at midseason. I'm to the point that I'm asking, what is your roster? Because I keep getting surprised. They had almost no transfers, I think, or at least no impact transfers this year. I think the team's more on the same page. I think they're darn good. I think they're darn dangerous. Here's the trick. They've got to get through the rest of the NJAC without being beaten up. And they have absolutely got to get in the NCAA tournament and put their foots down. or foot down. They cannot lay off the accelerator, and I cannot tell you how many times Ramapo has done that in the opening weekend of the tournament. It just rolled over. Remember the year Scranton got all the way to the Elite Eight and lost to Cabrini, beating Middlebury in the Sweet 16? They should have faced Ramapo in the second round, and I think that tournament changes completely. But Ramapo rolled over in the first round. Completely different Ramapo squad this year. I'm going to keep my eye on them. Hopefully they can finish the season, but they're dangerous this year. I actually think they're very good, and I do have them in my top 10. Regional rankings around the corner. You're right. They come out in 10 days. Do you try and rank men's and women's teams yourself before the committee releases the rankings for fun? What's your process? No. Listen, we have enough work to do when it comes to selecting teams. I don't want to extrapolate out and do regional rankings. Here's what I do. A lot of guys and gals on the boards, d3boards.com, will put out their what they think the rankings will be. Matt Snyder, who we talked about, Night Slappy, does an amazing job with his numbers that we reference a lot of times when we talked about SOS on the men's side, because he's doing the math and it's pretty much dead on to what the NCAA is doing. He will put his out strictly on data. Others do it, but they all have their own biases, and rightly so. I will look at a lot of those and I will make comments and judgments based on what others are doing, because that is my ability to see what they have and do my own research. I don't have time to sit down and do every single region and both genders before any of the regional rankings. It is far too difficult. I can make guesstimations on what I know, but I'm not going to put 13 or 12 teams together from the Northeast. I just don't have that kind of time. Yes, I will sit here and be able to give you guesstimations. Like I'm pretty sure Tufts men's basketball is going to be number 1 in the Northeast. I'm sorry, number 2. Babson would be number 1. Where I think there might be a dark horse or something like that. But I don't have the time to go deeper than that. I also don't have the data as readily available as the committees do. The committees have them on computers. They pop up. They can make comparisons and all that. I literally have to take a pad or an Excel spreadsheet or something and do all of that myself, and I don't have time. So I look at what others do. I look at what they do for reasoning and make my own decisions and give my own feedback on D3 boards or here on the show, but I don't do them ahead of time. It's just far too much work. And our final question comes from Kwame in St. Louis. He says, how early is too early to start making bracket projections? Probably, depends on what you term by bracket projections. If you're talking about selections to the NCAA tournament, we're already doing that on D3 boards. We kind of do it here on the show. A lot of the questions you'll hear me ask from now on are, do you feel like you're on the bubble? Are you in trouble? Here's why I asked that question. And you'll start sensing who I think is in the tournament and who I think is safe and who I think's in trouble. On the flip side of that, as far as making a bracket, far too early. I've almost gotten to the point where making the bracket, while it's fun, is frustrating because the mileage is so a part of this equation. And there's other details we might not know. Like we might pick a host and it turns out that host can't even host for whatever. They didn't put their paperwork in, or there's a problem, or they're not big enough, or whatever the case may be. I love bracketing, but it's so. Here's the other thing: is we make a bracket, we think it's really cool, and the NCAA comes out with a completely different one, and everyone's like, "Oh my God!" But your bracket's not like D3 hoops. We like D3. You can make 100 brackets in Division III with all the rules and plot. You could put 100 brackets together, and every single one of them would have flaws, and every single one of them would be good. Well, for the most part, you're going to find some bad ones, but no, I think it's too early to truly bracket a tournament for Division III. The other thing, too, is the first regional rankings have no impact on anything. The second regional rankings is when we truly start having an impact, because the results versus regionally ranked opponents has 2 regional rankings involved. So the second one's going to become a factor for the third one. And the last one's going to have those previous 2, and then that last one's going to be dropped. It gets a little complicated, but that's going to be a factor. So that's when you can start really narrowing down who you think is going to be making it and who's on the bubble and et cetera. And then bracketing is really that last week, but really we still don't even know who's in, because I can't tell you how many Pool C bubbles will burst, and that will change everything. We're running really late here, so let's keep this moving. If you got more questions for the Hoopsville Mailbag, email them, hoopsville@d3hoops.com. We'll get them on another show. Top 25 as far as the men's side, I told you not a ton of losses. We mentioned the The Tufts lost to Bates. Whitworth lost to Whitman. We mentioned that back on Thursday's show, pretty much giving Whitman the Northwest Conference, barring a complete collapse. I think Whitworth will fall out of the top 10 as a result. Denison took their second loss of the season on Saturday, losing to Wittenberg 71-70. I'll be honest, that one surprised me. Wittenberg, it's not like Wittenberg isn't a decent team, but I almost feel like Denison kind of laid off the pedal there a little bit. So Denison taking a bit of a hit there. They'll fall out of the top 10. They actually might lose a lot of votes, and I say this because I think a lot of people haven't been buying into Denison, and this is a perfect excuse for them to jump off the bandwagon. Susquehanna at number 11 lost to Moravian 80-77. I was keeping an eye on that game. That's not a great loss, though Moravian's playing far better this season. Give Moravian credit. They've beaten Scranton this year. They have beaten Susquehanna. They've given Catholic a run for their money. Don't be surprised if Moravian pulls off a little bit of a surprise, maybe even in the tournament. Susquehanna picking up their third loss. We'll see how far they tumble. I'm not even voting for them. They're at number 11. I'm not saying I'm a huge amount of points, but it kind of gives you an idea of how the other voters feel about them. Salisbury, as we mentioned earlier in the week, lost to Christopher Newport. I don't think that will hurt them much, though they barely got past Mary Washington. Some voters might be getting nervous with them. Augustana lost to Carthage 74-70 in overtime, and as we mentioned, lost their sophomore Warford for the rest of the season. He is out of school. I think some voters might bail on Augustana, but I'm not really sure. New Jersey City lost to TCNJ to split the season with TCNJ. That proves that TCNJ is as good as people were predicting out of there, but it also puts New Jersey City in a bit of a bind here, picking up their fourth loss. Honestly, I don't think they can be on the table with more than 6 losses. So they got to button it up. If they're on the table for a selection, that means they lost in the conference tournament, which means they at least have 5 losses. They really, I think they're risking it if they get to 6. That would put them at, 19-6. No, that'd be 21-6. I have to see their SOS. Hold on a second. I have that. Their SOS as of right now, 487. Jersey City could be in some trouble here. That being said, that SOS will come up, but Jersey City could be in some trouble. Swarthmore in the receiving votes category lost to Gettysburg. Not a good loss for Swarthmore. Lycoming lost twice this week. Messiah and Widener beat them. I have a feeling Lycoming, almost a deja vu to last year. Are they kind of derailing here at the end of the season? We'll keep an eye on that, but they'll probably lose all of their 36 votes. Hardin-Simmons lost to Concordia of Texas 95-89. That hurts for me as a voter of Hardin-Simmons. I'm going to have to look at that a little bit more closely. Eastern Connecticut, we mentioned on Thursday, lost to Keene State, ending like an 11-game winning streak, I think it was. They're 14-6. Hanover lost to Rose-Hulman. We mentioned that on Thursday, but they at least got back on the horse and beat Defiance. Brockport had a horrible week. Lost to Fredonia 97-61, then lost to lost to Oswego. They beat Fredonia. I'm misreading this. Beat Fredonia, then lost to Oswego and Cortland this weekend. 2 losses to Brockport. They're 15-5. Team that's just playing. I can't tell you how many people tell me Brockport's a good team. They're just inconsistent. St. Lawrence lost to Skidmore. We mentioned that at the beginning of the week. At least they came back the rest of the weekend and did well. They beat RPI and Union. Albertus Magnus lost to St. Joseph's of Maine. A little bit of surprise there. Albertus Magnus was only getting 1 vote, so they just won't have another vote. On the women's side, actually more losses in the top 25. Hope lost to Albion, which we mentioned, but at least they got back and beat Elma 83-65. Scranton took that second loss in 3 games, losing to Elizabethtown on Saturday 61-55. This looked like Scranton had a bad game, plain and simple. Really rough weekend for Carnegie Mellon. Lost both to Wash U and Chicago today. Wash U on Friday 78-77 and Chicago 81-61. Those were home games for Carnegie Mellon. 15-3. They'll fall out of the top 10, but they're still a really good team. But that makes that UAA race even more messy. Whitewater women, we mentioned, lost to Stevens Point, got back on the winning horse by beating La Crosse. And George Fox, we mentioned, lost to Puget Sound, but then beat Pacific. Actually, we didn't mention that. George Fox lost to Puget Sound, in case you missed that. George Fox not having the same season many are accustomed to. I'll get back to one of these other ones. Marymount lost to Frostburg. We mentioned that on Thursday. Augustana had a rough weekend on the women's side as well. They lost to Illinois Wesleyan this week and lost to Carthage. And then Babson, we mentioned, lost to MIT in double overtime but beat Smith. But then we get to FDU Florham. We mentioned this earlier. They beat Manhattanville 80-44 and lost to Misericordia 86-67. Here's what I know about the FDU Florham case. Mark Mitchell, their head coach, has not been coaching the last two. From what I have been told through two independent sources, he has been suspended. Really, three sources, now I think about it. He has been suspended. Apparently an investigation into his behavior and the team's behavior. I'm not going to go into a lot of details here, but it all stems to some stuff that happened last year and some stuff that happened about a week ago in their game against Delaware Valley. I can tell you this much, that I've been told that the school's president is the one who has suspended him. I do know that the conference is involved, or at least monitoring the case, that the president has decided to investigate this, so it's now out of the athletic department's control. And I believe it is other schools in the conference who have finally had enough of basically behavior by FDU Florham's head coach and the team. That's about as general as I'm going to get and as detailed as I'm going to get for right now. There's a lot more out there. I can promise you this. We will have an article most likely by tomorrow on d3hoops.com about this. We don't know who will or will not comment about this, and we will cover it more on the Hoopsville Marathon coming up on Thursday. Interesting enough, we were going to ask Coach Mitchell to come on the show because it was about time we talked to FDU Florham. They were on top of the conference at the time. Doubt that's going to happen now if he is on suspension. Don't know how this turns out. I don't think it looks good for Coach Mitchell, in my opinion, from everybody I have talked to, but we'll see what their president has to say on this matter, and we will leave it at that. But that is something to keep an eye on. But I've been told he has been suspended indefinitely, and we will learn more. Again, an article being put together for d3hoops.com with far more details, and on Thursday we'll talk in more detail as well. Speaking of Thursday, that is our marathon show, as we've gone marathon on this show. We're 20 minutes past when I thought I'd go off the air with this one. Marathon show starting at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Ton to talk about, ton to do. We can't give you a guest idea right now, except for a handful of guests that we know about. We will get to those. We'll be putting up the show information as soon as tomorrow afternoon, so you can start following along about who we will have on. It's all part of our fundraising campaign. I want to thank those of you who have donated to that fundraiser already. We've had a handful of people, so we're at least 3% of the way towards our goal. I want to thank those of you. There are great perks if you want to do that. We sent out a tweet earlier before the show started with a special link if you want to contribute to the fundraiser at a lower perk level. Basically, get all the same thing for the $75 perk at $60. We'll talk plenty more about this campaign on Thursday. We're going to be doing a big push this week about it. But if you appreciate what we do here on the show, please take the time to give us something in return so that we can continue doing the show. That's the basics of it. We're going to get going as of that note, because we are way past our time and we want to get off the air. We also have to save our energy a little bit for Thursday. So if you don't forget, again, Thursday we'll be on the air at 10 a.m. Eastern and going for 12 hours here from the Hoopsville studios with lots of interviews lined up and lots of conversations. And then on next Sunday, a week from today on the Super Bowl, we will go on the air about 1 or 2 o'clock Eastern time. We'll decide that time. Just bear with us. We'll tweet that out or whatnot as we get at least a show under our belts before the big game. I want to thank Bob Sheldon at Tufts, Coach Carrillo at Elmhurst, Alex Richie at Oglethorpe, Dan Miller at LeTourneau, and Karen Harvey at Montclair State, and of course all of their sports information directors and staff for helping us put tonight's show together. Really appreciate you tuning in as well. As I quickly double check to make sure we haven't gotten any comments that I have missed somewhere along the line. I don't see any, so thank you for tuning in, everybody, and I hope you enjoyed the show. Again, if you want to be part of our Hoopsville mailbag, email us, hoopsville@d3hoops.com. Join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville, and join us on Twitter at D3Hoopsville and hashtag Hoopsville. I think that's about doing it. That's all I got. Yeah, that's it. We're going to get going. We're going to be back here Thursday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern. Log on and enjoy the marathon from the Hoopsville studios. It should be great. Thanks to the City of Salem, WBCA, Women's Basketball Coaches Association, the National Basketball Coaches Association, the NABC, National Association of Basketball Coaches, Women's Basketball Coaches Association, City of Salem, and D3Hoops.com for helping us put on the show as they always do. We'll see you here on Thursday night. Good night, and enjoy some basketball. It should be a great rest of the season. 1 month to go, folks. This is when it gets really good, if it hasn't been good already. Good night. We'll see you on Thursday.